Well, hello and good evening. Welcome to the Lupus Foundation. Today, our webinar is entitled Meet Your Way to Relief. Can the Carnivore Diet Help Manage Lupus Symptoms and Other Autoimmune Diseases? My name is Rihanna Harilal, President and founder of the Voice of Lupus Foundation, and today I will be your host for the session. The Voice of Lupus Foundation is a registered NGO fiercely committed to improving the quality of lives for all people living with lupus in Trinidad and Tobago since 2011. We accomplish this by investing in initiatives, hosting events, programs, and planning campaigns that promote advocacy, awareness, public education, and support for all lupus patients. Autoimmune diseases such as lupus can be debilitating and challenging to manage. Symptoms such as fatigue, pain, and organ damage can greatly impact the quality of life for those living with these conditions. Now, in recent years, the carnivore diet, also known as the all-meat diet, has gained popularity as a way to manage autoimmune diseases by reducing inflammation and improving nutrient deficiencies. Today, we will be discussing the potential benefits of the carnivore diet for those living with lupus and other autoimmune diseases. Now, please note that the Voice of Lupus Foundation, known as the VLF, is committed to providing educational and informative webinars for individuals affected by lupus. However, the information provided during these webinars is for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended as medical advice. The VLF is not responsible for any actions taken by individuals based on the information provided during the webinars. We recommend that you always consult with your doctor or specialist before making any decisions regarding your health. Additionally, the views and opinions expressed during the webinars are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the Voice of Lupus Foundation. The VLF makes no representations or warranties of any kind, express or implied, about the completeness, accuracy, reliability, sustainability, or availability with respect to the webinars or the information, products, services, or related graphics contained in the webinars for any purpose. Any reliance you place on such information is therefore strictly at your own risk. Today's webinar is being facilitated by holistic health consultant Setwayo Laborde. Setwayo is a former fitness lecturer at the Trinidad and Tobago Fitness Academy, where he taught international courses in different fields of fitness. He is certified in AEA, ISCA, and KMG. He's excellent at researching, as you will see shortly. Setwayo is the owner, the managing director of Setwayo's Fitness Enterprise. Since 2013, Setwayo holds firmly to the vision and mission to help and inspire individuals to achieve the best version of themselves through natural, effective, and simple nutritional and fitness techniques. Setwayo is also featured weekly on Synergy's Breaking Dawn morning program with host Stefan Rizis. So we're happy to endorse him. I'm very happy to endorse him as my coach, having started aquatic exercise maybe about 6 months ago and began making the necessary changes to my diet to help manage the chronic pains and fatigue that I battle, having lived with systemic lupus, fibromyalgia, osteoarthritis, and hip dysplasia. So we will discuss the scientific evidence behind the diet, provide tips. Setwayo will provide some advice for those who are considering trying the carnivore diet. We will also have questions and answers session again at the end of the webinar where you can ask your questions. So again, we say thank you to Setwayo and to all of you who have joined in. So Set, it's over to you. I'm so sorry, Seth, we're not hearing you. You're
All
muted.
right. Good evening, everyone. All right, good evening. Thank you for having me on again. It is indeed a pleasure to be on these webinars to help edify all the viewing audiences. All right. Of course, my intent is always to provide information. This is one of the reasons why I share my screen so that individuals can see where I am sourcing my information from. That way they would have more faith in what is being said. Right. As I like to tell people, I deal a lot with facts. I deal with peer-reviewed studies and data and information on some of the highest authority of study material, right? So I try to keep opinion out because I like for people to have a holistic view of the information, reducing as much bias as possible. All right. The intent of Setwires Fitness Enterprise is to be an organization that encourages healing. All right. One of my mottos for my holistic health clinic is, why manage diseases when you can reverse? All right. So I'm not in the managing diseases. I'm in the business of reversing diseases. All right. So that's what I focus on doing, reversing diseases, not managing it. You know, people would think of you know, when it comes to the carnivore diet, that it might help reduce symptoms. Truth is, it helps get rid of symptoms completely. All right. But we are going to go into that to help everyone get a better understanding of it, because
before you continue, we're having some issues with your bandwidth. Is there any way you can shift a little to your box? Maybe it's the internet bandwidth is coming off here, and you're very blurred, so we're not seeing you clearly, so we would not see your presentation.
I don't know if it's the area. You know, sometimes certain days internet might give some trouble. So hoping it stabilizes as we go along.
Okay.
All right. So I hope that happens. All right. So what I'm going to do is I would start off by reading from a study that was done in March, and it was completed last year, the 23rd of November, 2021. All right, so I would share my screen and I would read through this study with you all. All right. So this is from the website, All Things Carnivore. This study you could also find on PubMed as well. PubMed, for those that are familiar with PubMed, that is for the National Library of Medicine. It's international, the US government medical library. All right, so this information is also found there as well. This study was conducted by Harvard University. All right, it says the carnivore diet experience of 2,029 people, a Harvard study. So it says here, a survey on the carnivore diet experience of over 2,000 people was carried out in 2020 by a team of researchers from Harvard Medical School and other institutions. The survey findings were recently published on the 2nd of November, 2021 in Current Developments in Nutrition. Right. In this post, we look at the key findings of the study, including who participated in the survey, why they started the carnivore diet, how long they've been on the diet, what they ate, and what they experienced after switching to this diet. If you would like to read the full paper, here's the link. All right, so for those that want to look for it, you could go to the site and you could pull up the entire paper. If you want, it says who conducted this study. So these are the names of the researchers: Belinda Lenza, PhD, medical doctor, PhD, is a researcher attending physician at the Division of Endocrinology, Boston Children's Hospital, and assistant professor of pediatrics at Harvard Medical School. Now, the reason why I just gonna go through their positions, all right? Because I want people to see that it isn't a fly-by-night study that was done. So you see, PhDs, these are researchers by Medical Research Center, Louisiana State University. Here we have MS, a registered nurse, and a registered dietitian as well, and a researcher and dietitian at Boston Children's Hospital. Then we have one who's a medical doctor and PhD and endocrinologist, researcher at Boston Children's Hospital, professor of pediatrics at Harvard Medical School, professor of nutrition at Harvard School of Public Health. All right, so we are seeing that these are well-qualified people holding well-recognized positions. All right, and it says the study was approved by the Boston Children's Hospital Institutional Review Board. Who participated in the study? Study participants were recruited from carnivore communities on Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, Twitter, and others between 30th of March to 24th of June 2020. Of 3,883 correspondents, 1,854 were excluded due to age, illegibility, incomplete information, and duplication, leaving 2,029 remaining participants in the study. Most of the participants were from the US at 64%, Europe at 11%, and Australia 8%. 2/3 of the participants were male, and the remaining were female and other. Participants' age was from 18 to 85, and median age was 44. Their weight was in the range of 38 kg to 176 kg, which is 84 pounds to 388 pounds. And their median weight was 76 kg, which is 168 pounds. Nearly 2/3 of the participants, 64%, had tertiary education. Their income status was spread out, with 20% reporting high income, 66% middle, and 14% low. Why did they start the carnivore diet? 93% of the participants stated that the main reason for starting the carnivore diet was health and weight loss. Within health reasons, their motivations were further broken down as follows. 78% was body weight / body composition. 74% was focus and energy. 56% was allergies, skin and autoimmunity. 52% digestive health. 46% athletic performance. 45% mental health, and 11% diabetes. How long have they been on the carnivore diet? The survey participants were required to have been on the carnivore diet for at least 6 months. The participants included in the study reported having been on the carnivore diet from 6 months to 337 months, or 28 years, as the writer says. I wonder who this veteran carnivore is. A medium length reported was 14 months. What did they eat on the carnivore diet? Ruminant meat, that is beef, lamb, goat, and venison, was the most commonly consumed food, with 85% reported to have consumed it at each meal or daily. Eggs were the next popular food for the participants, with 44% reported to have consumed eggs at each meal or daily. Non-dairy milk, example, cream and cheese, was also popular, with 43% reported to have consumed it at each meal or daily. Milk was consumed weekly or more frequently by only 17% of the participants, and 65% reported having never consumed milk on the carnivore diet. Pork and poultry were less popular. 13% of the participants reported consuming pork at least once a day, and 53% had pork 1 to a few times a week. 2.5% reported consuming poultry at least once a day, and 38% had poultry weekly. Fish was consumed daily by 3.5% and weekly by 36%. Organ meat was consumed at least once a week by 42% of the participants. Bone broth was consumed monthly or more frequently by 52% of the participants. Condiments were rarely used, only by 1.7%, reported using at least daily, and 53% reported no use. Herbs and spices were more common and used at least daily by 21% of the participants. Salt was consumed liberally by 36% of the participants. The rest reported low to medium salt intake or no specific target. There's a high level of compliance to the diet, with 69% never consuming non-starchy vegetables, 74% never consumed starchy vegetables, 89% never consumed legumes, 66% never consumed fruit, 79% never consumed grains, 78% never consumed sugar, 74% never consumed honey, 65% never consumed non-calorie sweeteners, 87% never consumed bread and fried fast food meats, 81% never consumed candy or milk chocolate, 75% never ate desserts, 80% never used multivitamin supplements. What were their meat choices and preferred doneness? Their meat choices were as followed: 61% choose high fat, 37% chose moderate fat, 2% chose lean. With regard to meat quality, 46% chose 100% grass finished or predominantly grass finished. 54% chose 100% grain finished or predominantly grain finished. All right, so you could say it's almost 50-50 with grass-fed and grain-fed. Their preferred doneness was as followed: 2% liked raw, 29% liked rare, 45% liked medium rare, 15% liked medium, and 6% liked medium well. What did they drink on the carnivore diet? Coffee was a popular drink for this group of the carnivore dieters, with 57% reported drinking coffee at least daily. However, 24% reported never drinking coffee. Tea was less popular, with only 12% reported drinking tea at least daily, and 51% reported never drinking tea. Alcohol was rarely consumed. 83% never consumed beer, 86% never consumed low-carb beers or seltzer, 57% never consumed wine. Of the 43 who consumed wine, only 1.1% had it at least daily, 11% had it once to a few times a week, and the rest had it very sparingly. 55% never consumed spirits. Of the 45% who consumed spirits, only 0.5% drank at least daily. 10% had it once to a few times a week, and the rest had it very sparingly. In other words, if this group had any alcohol at all, their preferences were spirits or wine, and most of them only drank very sparingly. Electrolyte supplements were used at least daily by 17% of the participants, while 24% used them from a few times a year to a few times a week, and 59% didn't use electrolytes at all. How often did they eat? Most of the participants, which is 81%, had only 1 to 2 meals a day in particular. 64% ate 2 times a day, 17% ate 1 time a day, 17% ate 3 times or more a day, and 2% ate less than once a day. What did they experience on the carnivore diet? Overall, the authors of the study found that, contrary to common expectations, adults consuming a carnivore diet experienced few adverse effects and instead reported health benefits and high satisfaction. Detailed findings of the study are summarized below. 1. Self-reported changes in health status. An overwhelming majority of the participants experienced positive outcomes. In particular, 69% improved chronic diseases, 95% improved overall health, 91% improved hunger/food cravings, 85% improved mental clarity, 66% improved memory, 83% improved focus, 69% improved sleep, 78% improved strength, 76% improved endurance, 89% improved energy. Changes in chronic conditions and medication uses. Again, an overwhelming majority of the participants reported improvement in chronic conditions and reduction in medication uses. In particular, 93% improved or resolved overweight/obesity. Mean BMI decreased from 27.2 to 24.3. 93% improved or resolved hypertension. 84% improved or resolved cardiovascular issues. 98% improved or resolved diabetes and insulin resistance. 97% improved or resolved gastrointestinal conditions. 89% improved or resolved autoimmune conditions. 96% improved or resolved musculoskeletal issues. 96% improved or resolved psychiatric symptoms. 92% improved or resolved urologic issues. 92% improved or resolved dermatologic issues. In relation to diabetes medication, 90% discontinued or decreased insulin. 92% discontinued insulin for type 2 diabetes altogether. 100% discontinued other diabetes injectables. 84% discontinued oral diabetes medication. While bearing in mind that these are self-reported results, there is no drug that I know of that has had such spectacular health outcomes as the carnivore diet. And I just want to say there that there is no drug ever that have gotten results anywhere near these here, right, near the carnivore diet. The participants of this survey also reported a high level of satisfaction with the carnivore diet, with 98% being either very satisfied or satisfied. The majority of the participants reported that being on this diet did not impact their social life and that their medical providers and family and friends were mostly neutral or supportive of their dietary choice. Limitations of the study. As this is based on self-reported data, potential limitations of this study is recall error and reporting bias. In addition, as this is an online survey, it is not possible to objectively assess the diet and its health outcomes. Conclusion, while the findings of this study are probably what the carnivore community would have already known or expected, I think it is significant that a team of researchers from well-respected institutions have actually looked into it. I think it is a signal that the carnivore diet is becoming a mainstream diet, and we can expect a lot more research into this diet in the near future. And hopefully, many more people will try out and benefit from this way of eating. I also hope that in the future, the carnivore diet will become the first line of recommendation for people who suffer from chronic diseases that are currently labeled as incurable by medical professionals. This is exactly what the ICMNI in Hungary is doing at the moment, treating many chronic diseases with a high-fat, animal-based diet. All right, so that's basically the end of the study there, the information from the study.
Right, before you move on, was that the behavioral characteristics and self-reported health status among 2,029 adults consuming carnivore diet?
Correct.
Was that it?
Yeah.
Okay, so there is a question, right? So we're talking about the studies, the articles, the podcast entitled, well, the Harvard study of 2021. First of all, these are some of the notes from the medical person who would have posed this to us. The study was not carried out, 1, in a controlled environment. 2, the study did not focus on autoimmune or lupus. Survey size 2029 with 369 stating they have some form of autoimmune. Therefore, the sample size is not nearly reflective to the characteristically or statistically acceptable range where 10% of the population being looked at needs to be sampled. in order to get a substantial study. The study did not focus really on autoimmune diseases. It was just by chance. What are your views on that? Second, the podcast. I see people talking about it in their podcast, but they aren't dietitians, doctors, scientists. Therefore, how can we really take this information as credible, reliable? And I know you face this a lot, especially when you do your program on Breaking Dawn, where there's so many people looking on, so many people have questions. How would you respond to, the naysayers, especially those in the, who wear the cap of medical doctor, experts, qualified, what have you, in terms of kind of debunking and refuting even the plausibility of this study, which is, it did not really meet the criteria of a proper study.
Right. And that's why I read the whole thing and I showed that it was a self-reported study, or what you call an anecdotal study. All right. The reason why is for years, the carnivore community has been pleading with scientific bodies to do studies on the carnivore diet, and they have been blatantly refusing to do studies on the carnivore diet. The carnivore diet is one of the least researched dietary type out of all of them, because the scientific community keep refusing to do research, right? There is a doctor called Sean Baker, and they have been raising funds through donations to build funds to do studies, to finance it themselves, because the scientific and medical communities are refusing blatantly to do studies on this diet. Now, I could have my opinion as to why they are refusing, because look at this anecdotal study, which was done in order to encourage larger scientific bodies who have the financing and the funding to do what we would call RCTs, randomized control trials, right? They can do those large-scale studies because they have the financing to do so. It is to encourage them to take up that mantle and actually do it. So people should be asking the question, why are they refusing to do studies on the carnivore diet, instead of saying, oh, this is an anecdotal study? Even as an anecdotal study, the results of it is still far beyond any other drug in medical history, right? When it comes to the positive results. Now, the other, what was the second question that was asked?
The second question was the focus on autoimmune diseases. Really and truly, it was only just 10%. Statistically acceptable, only 10% from the 2029, 369 stated that they had some form of autoimmune diseases. How acceptable is this? The study really did not focus on autoimmune. It was just by chance.
Right. The study did not focus on any diseases. Yeah. It just focused on the carnivore diet, and just these were the benefits. If you notice, the benefits for the participants weren't specific to one thing. They got overall health benefits. So it wasn't just one aspect of their health that benefited and then another aspect suffered. All right. So these are things we have to look at. Right. Now, this is not all the information I plan on presenting today. This was just one thing to start off, as to say, we just wet the beak a little bit. Right. And then we're going to go into stuff that I could 100% guarantee you that the Medical Board and Association cannot refute, right? So we are going to go into some stuff afterwards, right? And look at some things and get an understanding of certain things, especially in the field of study types in health science, because many people don't understand or know. I think somebody is yes.
Let me just mute. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so many people don't understand the difference in study types. So we are going to look at that, see what are the differences in study types, what study types are the most credible and the most respected study types in the scientific community. All right. So when we get an understanding of that now, then when I share some more data, then we would see just how accurate that data is with regards to cause and effect.
Before I allow you to move on, there is a question here that someone sent. With the carnivore diet having very little intensive research and medical investigations, why is it worth the risk of even trying?
Why is it worth the risk? And that would be answered when I show you the study types and then show you some conclusions the scientific community have made over the past 2 years.
Okay.
All right. So that is where that would be answered. All right. Because I know a lot of people are questioning why even try it. And the information I'm going to show you is going to show you why not you should try it, but why everybody should convert to it. All right. Because the information is going to be quite solid. All right. Could continue?
Yes, you can.
Alona? Okay. So
Yes,
I'm going to share my screen again here. Just going to pull up a little chart so that we could see study types. All right. So study types in health science. Now, just in case someone says, oh, that is just a random chart, he pull up, I would also, after I just share the information on this chart, I would also show this information from PubMed, which is a credible source of information. So just going to show when it comes to strength of conclusions of study types. So when it comes to study types here, the lowest types of studies is case reported. So the conclusions from these studies are the weakest, right? Whereas detailed history of a small number of individual cases. Then you have cross, so all these class under observational studies. You have cross-sectional survey, assesses the prevalence of an outcome in a broad population at one point in time, right? As you go up, you see it getting stronger. You have case control studies, compares histories of a group of people with a condition to a group of people without. Then you have cohort studies, follows a group of people to track risk factors and outcomes over time. Then you have the quasi-experiment, which is, this is in the experimental now, non-randomly assigned groups of patients to receive either a treatment or placebo. And then you have randomized control trial, which is one of the strongest types of studies, is randomly selects a group of patients to receive a treatment and another to receive placebo. And then you have the systematic review and meta-analysis, which collects all previous studies on the topic and statistically combines their results. So this one gives you the strongest conclusion, the strongest strength in conclusion. So I like to also look for things that are systematic review and meta-analysis, right? And then that's where when you see studies like that, and even randomized control trials, those two, you know that the conclusion is very solid. All right, very solid. Not saying that there isn't a possibility that it may not be accurate or whatnot, but when it comes to types of studies done, these are the two that are at the top when it comes for getting solid, strong conclusions on scientific topics in health science. All right. So having said that, let me close this. And I am going to pull up some more data, right, on a particular topic from PubMed. All right. So, of course, credible source here. So the National Library of Medicine, right? This information was, well, this year was on the 21st of January. No, sorry, the 12th of January, 2021. It was published on the 20th of September. Sorry, on the 10th of September, 2020. All right. What is the topic? Effects of total red meat intake on glycemic control and inflammatory biomarkers, a meta-analysis of randomized controlled studies. So this uses not just, in fact, when I read on the rest, you would see what this study utilized. It says, our objective was to conduct a systematic review and meta-analysis to assess the effects of total red meat, TRM, intake on glycemic control and inflammatory biomarkers using randomized control trials of individuals free from cardiometabolic disease. We hypothesized that higher total red meat intake would negatively influence glycemic control and inflammation based on positive correlations between total red meat and diabetes. We found 24 eligible articles, medium duration, 8 weeks, from 1,172 articles researched in PubMed, Cochrane, and CINAHL up to August 2019. That included 1 diet periods differing in total red meat, 2 participants aged greater than 19 years or equal to, included either men or women who were not pregnant / lactating, no diagnosed cardiometabolic disease, and data on fasting glucose, insulin, HOMA-IR, glycated hemoglobin, reactive protein, or cytokines. We use a repeated measure of ANOVA to assess pre to post diet period changes, random effects meta-analysis to compare pre to post changes between diet period with greater than versus less than 0.5 servings, 35 grams per day of total red meat, and meta-regressions for dose-response relationship. We group diet periods to explore heterogeneity, resources including risk of bias using the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute, quality assessment of control intervention studies, glucose, insulin, and HOMA-IR values decreased, while HbA1c and CRP values did not change during total red meat or alternative diet period. There was no difference in change values between diet period with greater than versus less than 0.5 servings per day of total red meat, with mean difference 95% CLS, glucose 0.040 millimoles per liter, minus 0.049, 0.129, insulin minus 0.710 moles per liter, minus, I'm going to just bypass all these figures. Let me jump down to here where it says total red meat consumption for up to 16 weeks does not affect changes in biomarkers of glycemic control or inflammation in adults free of but at risk for cardiometabolic disease. This trial was registered at Prospero as 2018 CRD, and then I give the number here. This whole article, it's a long article, goes on to say that no inflammation was found from red meat consumption, right? Now, keep in mind that this study is a systemic review, a meta-analysis, all right, where they reviewed over, well, they searched through 1,172 articles, and they found 24 dealing with total red meat consumption and the effects that they have. So it's a systemic review. And what we look at previously, when we look at the chart with types of studies, we saw that systemic review is the strongest type of study that can be done. And the strongest type of study is saying that red meat consumption is not an inflammatory cause, and does not cause inflammation. Now, something
that's kind of, sorry to break your pattern of thought there, but it's kind of like the irony of that, because for a lot of persons with autoimmune diseases, especially with lupus, we have experienced a lot of persons coming in and saying, listen, doctors have advised us, don't consume red meat, limit the intake of red meat because the inflammation markers, it increases uric acid. Patients are being told to stop consuming it because studies have shown that, and of course, this is what I'm just referring to a question that was posed by a medical student, that studies have shown that meat, especially red meats, are a known trigger for inflammation because it increases uric acid and many doctors have stopped patients in the past from consuming it. Are you then implying that years of study are wrong?
I am saying that they implied, not me. Right? I'm saying that they corrected the information 2021 and 2020. They corrected the information, right? Similar with the correction with the information on, let me find it here. When they corrected the information on saturated fats, the information was corrected on the 21st of December, 2022, which is last year.
Yeah.
I'll jump down just to the conclusion.
A couple of weeks ago.
Correct. And the conclusion is findings from the studies reviewed in this paper. First, let me go here to help people understand that what was done was, it says a review was conducted examining observational studies and prospective epidemiologic cohort studies, randomized controlled trials, systemic reviews and meta-analysis of observational studies and prospective epidemiologic cohort studies and long-term RCTs. So in other words, this was a review of all studies.
Between 2010 and 2021.
Right, between 2010 and 2021, this was a review of all studies, right? And the conclusion says the findings from the studies reviewed in this paper indicate that the consumption of saturated fatty acids, which is the fats that you get from meat, is not significantly associated with cardiovascular risk events or mortality. Based on the scientific evidence, there is no scientific ground to demonize saturated fatty acids as a cause of cardiovascular disease. Saturated fatty acids naturally occurring in nutrient-dense foods can be safely included in the diet. What site is this?
The National Library of Medicine.
All right, this is the go-to source in the West. Now, what I'm saying is, many things in research, when corrected, it sometimes takes years before it is taught in institutions of learning. So that is years of wrong information going to be continued after it is known to be wrong. Right? Many people in the medical field, of course, we know the medical field is a prestigious field. I was talking to a doctor the other day, and he said, he asked me a question, and when I'm going to answer his question, he asks another question. I say, can you allow me to answer the question? He refused to allow me to answer the question. Refused, right? And then when he realized that I am coming with strong points, he turned, where you went to school? You's not no doctor. I am a doctor. That's his defense. He is a doctor, right? That is his defense. So it doesn't matter that the information that I am bringing is peer-reviewed studies that are from the top credible bodies in the world, that are systemic reviews, which is the top study type for health science. It doesn't matter to him, right? It doesn't matter. Once it's not coming from another. I remember I had a client in the gym. This girl was in med school. I had another client. He's a medical doctor. So I was telling her about meat, and she's arguing with me, right? Arguing. So I told the doctor client to talk to her about it. As he spoke to her about it, to tell her the same thing I was telling her, she listened. But because they are trained to listen to the authority, which is another doctor. He's a doctor, she's a med student. So it's just like in the military, where you have your ranks, your higher officer, you have to listen to them regardless. Or everybody else in the military that is not military is classed as a civilian, right? And if you talk to some soldiers, they refer to you as civilian. They'll refer to you as a civilian in a condescending type of manner. That happens a lot with people that went med school, right? They look at anybody else because all information you could learn off the internet. Everything you could learn off the internet. There's nothing you cannot learn off the internet. Sometimes you might have to pay, sometimes I do, but pay to get the research and whatnot, right? But you can learn everything that you need to know from off the internet, right? It is where we have all access to information at our fingertips, right?
Such a question is coming in. So person is saying you've been very in-depth, but I think I'm still at a loss. So what exactly is the carnivore diet and what should I be eating? Break it down for them, Seth.
All right. I don't want to go too much in depth because this is what I do for a living. So people are, I would prefer if people deal with me directly because there are things, if I give a general thing, some people would get different responses based on where their health is. And they would need to pull back on something because, all right, let me put it like this. If you're on a high plant-based diet, you're going to have a deficiency of zinc and you're going to have a buildup of copper in your system, right? When you consume meat, let's say solid meat, red meat, right? The zinc in the red meat is going to try to balance back the copper. And you might get discomfort because when zinc is low, your stomach is going to underproduce hydrochloric acid. So you're not going to get proper digestion. So you're going to get some tummy aches because the amount of gastric juices being secreted into the stomach due to having a low zinc levels from a high plant-based diet is going to be low, so you're not going to get proper digestion. So that feeling in the stomach, people say, oh, that meat hurt my belly, so that means the meat not good, right? So then they associate that with the meat being something bad for them, when this time it is not the meat, it's because they have a zinc deficiency. So people would blame the meat.
I want to just share openly that when I first came to you and we did the consultation, and I remember telling you, but Seth, I can't eat eggs because I break out in hives. My skin would itch, I would get diarrhea and stuff like that. And I remember you telling me that, yeah, you have to eat the eggs. You have to eat the eggs, try the eggs. And I remember the first couple, maybe about 2 weeks, my body had to adjust because I had a reaction. I was having a reaction to consuming eggs. But do you know that now I can eat eggs with no issues at all? And I'm eating the most I ever ate was a dozen eggs a day. Well, you don't think I'm greedy here. I was just doing what I had to do for my body, right? I ate a dozen eggs without any hiccups. No hives, no diarrhea, nothing. It corrected itself, which I found was really, because for years, I love a scrambled egg. I love eggs. And I just could not eat eggs because for years, I thought that I had problems because of the diagnosis of IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. I could not consume eggs. Now I can eat eggs. So I think it's really interesting that persons, you might think you have an allergy to food, but it's a bigger thing. And just going back to a point that you made concerning cardiovascular with the studies, did anything come up with IBS and Crohn's and other digestive issues? Because a person is pointing out here, autoimmune is an umbrella term, and the average autoimmune person has like about 2 or more conditions. For those who have Crohn's, IBS, and other digestive issues and don't even know about it, meat is known as a trigger. Is it worth the risk of triggering another condition?
Right. It's not that meat is a trigger. It's the same thing I have been explaining. Their body isn't producing enough gastric juices. That's why I prefer people to book an appointment with me. So I go through with them and get them to eat foods that are more easily digestible to build back up the gastric juices in the body. Then they can go to consume the more solid food. So they have to go back because of the damage done to their gut. They have to go back and eat like a baby. For example, a newborn baby is not fed meat, right? A newborn baby is fed breast milk, right? and I'm not even going to say formula because they're not supposed to be consuming formula, right? Now, I have the data to show you what is the latest recommendations. The latest recommendations for infants diet is exclusively breast milk for the first 6 months of life, and after 6 months, breast milk and red meat. That and that is from the governing bodies, right? I can show that later on, right? But if people actually see it, we giving children formula, and then when they and saying they're getting gripe and colic and all these stuff, not knowing it's because we are feeding them the wrong types of food. All right. But you know, people are just unaware. So when it comes to things like Crohn's disease and IBS and so forth, you have to understand that your body is damaged, your gut is damaged, right? Because it is damaged.
Your immune system starts in the gut, 80%. Your immune
Right,
starts in the gut. Yeah.
So it is damaged, and you have to start repairing slowly to build back the strength of it. Then the body can feed how it needs to feed. What I want to share is something I shared in the first webinar that I did with you all. But I want to share it again because I just showed some information regarding the top type of study, which is systemic review meta-analysis. Yes. Right? Yes. And this here is from PhysDoc. You could Google this head in humans with apex predators for 2 million. You could Google this, right? You could Google this and you'll get this on many sites, because this came out, as you could see here, 5th of April, 2021. What I want to jump down was research that was done by Tel Aviv University, which is in Australia. All right. And the main
Israel.
Israel, which is in Israel. Yes. Tel Aviv University. Right. Yeah. What I want to jump to, it says this part here. In a process unprecedented in its extent, Dr. Bendo and his colleagues collected about 25 lines of evidence from about 400 scientific papers from different scientific disciplines, dealing with the focal question: were Stone Age humans specialized carnivores, or were they generalist omnivores? Most evidence was found in research on current biology, namely genetics, metabolism, physiology, and morphology. So this was a systematic review meta-analysis, over 400 research papers, right, that they reviewed, and over 25 lines of evidence, right? And what was the conclusion? Now it have two conclusions here. This one here, but I'll come back to it. This is the main point I want to make. It says evidence from human biology was supplemented by archaeological evidence. For instance, research on stable isotopes in the bones of prehistoric humans, as well as hunting practices unique to humans, show that humans specialize in hunting large and medium-sized animals with a high fat content. Comparing humans to large social predators of today, all of whom hunt large animals and obtain more than 70% of their energy from animal sources, reinforce the conclusion that humans specialize in hunting large animals and were in fact hypercarnivores. Now, this is the conclusion of meta-analysis over 400 scientific papers. Now, I would encourage anybody to look up this article, right? And you could even go all the way down to go into finding the actual paper. It's very long. I had to read out the whole thing, where it went through all 25 lines of evidence, all 25. And they show you all the research papers, all the 400, right? All the 400, and how they come to those conclusions, and concluded that humans are hypercarnivores, right? For years, we were taught that we were omnivores, right? But the reality is, as of, let me pull back the year, April 5th, 2021, it said it reinforced the conclusion. Reinforced the conclusion. And there's something else the article mentioned lower down, which I want to bring your attention to. It says, our studies addresses a very current controversy, both scientific and non-scientific, says Professor Bakai. For many people today, the Paleolithic diet is a critical issue. not only with regards to the past, but also concerning the present and future. It is hard to convince a devout vegetarian that his or her ancestors were not vegetarians. And people tend to confuse personal beliefs with scientific reality.
Yeah.
And that's what's going on today. There is no disease that is improving.
Yeah.
All diseases are getting worse. You mentioned before your experience with eggs. I have been allergic to shrimp my whole life. When I made the switch to this diet, my theory was it would correct my gut microbiome and I should be able to eat shellfish. So after a couple months on the diet, I said, right, time for me to try some shrimp, right? I went to Southern Meats. I bought some shrimp. I came home. I cleaned the shrimp myself. I cooked the shrimp and I ate it. I say, let me wait a couple minutes, see what happens. I say, you know what? Let me give it 3 days. Let me give it 3 days before I say anything on it. And I waited 3 days to see if something would happen. The last time I ate something, which was a few years ago, I ate something. I didn't even eat shrimp, but shrimp was in the vicinity. I got a breakout of hives, right? And I was confused a breakout for because I was like, I didn't consume. And I was like, wait, the rice was cooked with shrimp. That time I used to eat carbs, right? That time I used to eat carbs. And I was like, but they removed the shrimp for me, right? But the fact that it was cooked with it got a breakout of hives. So now I ate shrimp itself. I had nothing else that day, just shrimp alone, just to make sure not adding anything else to confuse or might hinder or anything like that. Had shrimp alone. Now, personally, I don't like shrimp. I don't like the taste, right? Personally, I don't like the taste. Of course, I don't use seasoning, right? My only seasoning is salt, right? So I didn't like the taste. And nothing happened, all right? So that day was my personal experience. Then my cousin who I got to study Carnivore Diet, the same thing happened with him. He could now eat shrimp as well, right? And it's not that, some people mightn't be able to eat shrimp when they were young. And then in my adult life, just a few years ago, shrimp caused problems. I remember sometime went fishing and used shrimp as bait and my eyes swell up.
Yes.
Right?
And
that wasn't even eating it.
And there are those like myself who developed the allergy in their adult life because growing up, I ate shrimp. I remember when I was studying in England, I always eating mussels and clam and all those sorts of things. And in 2009, I had to be rushed to the emergency room because, again, it was in near proximity to where I was, and I developed an anaphylactic reaction to shrimp and had to be, in the emergency room. Same thing with eggs. I had a slice of cake set, and it had to be in the emergency room and had to be put almost on a ventilator because I almost died. It was so.
I know you could eat a dozen eggs.
Yeah, no, I can eat. Oh, what to make it sound like I'm so greedy. But it's really interesting to also educate. I know that there are quite a number of lupus patients on, and I think a lot of them can share. And I'm a lupus patient myself, so I understand the urgency of trying to figure out what can I eat, what can I do to get a relief, because many of us, we are looking to find some level of normalcy in our lives. There's a question from a patient who has actually lupus nephritis. And the question is, studies have shown that meat, especially red meat, trigger inflammation. I also have digestive issues, but I also have an issue with my kidneys where I was diagnosed with lupus nephritis. Should I consume the carnivore diet? Is this best suited for me? Because I live with chronic fatigue and I also have so much leakage of protein in my kidneys. I am scared to even venture consuming high proteins.
All right. So I'm going to share my screen again.
Yes.
Because I like people to see, source of information where I'm getting stuff from. All right.
Mhm.
All
Now,
right.
salt. You talk about salt. I remember when we first had a consultation, you were basically telling me that I needed to consume salt, and not just like the white. And we're not talking about the white tabletop pot salt that you go buy in the supermarket. That's very affordable. We're talking about, there are two types you recommended: the pink Himalayan, as well as the Celtic salt, because of
Yeah.
the mineral, the concentration of the minerals. I believe the Celtic has the highest amount. I think is it 87?
Oh, it's 86, I believe it is. I think it's
86.
86. And
Whereas the pink
pink
Himalayan
salt is 84, I believe it is.
84. So it's not much of a difference.
Yeah, it's very, very similar. When normal table salt just has 2.
Has to, right?
Yeah.
And it's important to consume salt. A lot of people are going to say this is baloney, because we are taught you have to watch your sodium intake. You have to watch how much salt you consume. I mean, I have gone through markers of spewing protein in my kidneys, and the doctor is telling me you need to lay off salt. But I remember my consult with you. You told me to up salt. I need to up salt.
As this heading says here from PubMed, low salt diet increases insulin resistance in healthy subjects, which is quite interesting, right? There aren't the studies that were done on salt to say that salt causes high blood pressure, when they experimented on people that were suffering from hypertension, and they reduced their salt consumption, only 30% got a slight reduction in their blood pressure, and the other 70% there was no change. So why are they still pushing low salt diet? I have reduced people, in fact, gotten rid of people hypertension by increasing their salt consumption, and the hypertension has gone. Most of the people that suffer with high blood pressure are on a low salt diet. And if they reach to the point where they have to be hospitalized, they're going to take them and carry them to the hospital and put them on drips, which is a saline solution, which I find to be quite interesting.
Yes.
Right. But, we don't put the information together, and all these things that we observe, we don't put it together. I am in the hospital on drips, and they'll be like, yeah, boy, it's 5 bags of drips I'm had me on. Or I use 10 bags of drips. And people would say things like that. And ask them what drips are. Many do not know. Right? And it is classed as a modern medical miracle. And it is salt water. Right? Sometimes some might have a little bit of glucose, which is to try to jumpstart the system, to give you a little energy as well. But most drips is just salt water. Right? Constipation, you get rid of constipation instantly.
I think it's
by
worth
upping your salt consumption.
I think it's worth mentioning that you had a client, a young child who was constipated for months, was it?
Yeah, taking medication for constipation, and that was solved with a sip of salt water. And within 5 minutes, constipation that was suffering from and taking medication from was over. Right. It was over with just some salt water. That was it, right? The human body, from my perspective, is very simple and straightforward, all right? Many people haven't spent the time to research, and many people aren't, it sometimes may take a talent to connect the dots. And this is something that I am quite good at doing, is connecting the dots, linking ailment with certain lifestyle practices and habits, all right? And when people understand those things, you realize how easy it is to fix the body and how easy it is to prevent disease in the body, all right? But, sometimes we have given up on such, and we just put everything into the hands of the so-called authorities. And I remember seeing a video from quite back in the 1960s where a particular politician was warning that if we leave science into the hands of the authorities, it is going to lead to abuse of it. And that's one of the biggest mistakes that we would make in our lifetime. And it currently is, right? When it had little recommendations the other day, and they had red meat as being worse than Fruit Loops, right? And I was like, Where are they getting this information from? Now, they don't show you the studies, they just post a chart and people run with that. You go on TikTok and Instagram and you see people make videos where they don't post their source of information at all. They just speak, right? And just like in the days of Nazi Germany, Hitler was a charismatic speaker. His charisma is what caused all of that to happen because he was such a good speaker. He didn't have to provide data or evidence. Blonde hair, blue eyes, is it? Pale skin. Pale skin, blonde hair. He wasn't even that. Imagine that. He wasn't even that. And people believed him and held him up as a leader. And he provided what information and data? You know what was the result of his campaign? They actually found out that pale skin, blonde hair, and blue eyes were actually weaker. That was the result of that, right? But people didn't know that because, you know, everybody just, they go with who speaks best and who speaks with the most amount of confidence. And we don't question, ask for the data. And this is one of the reasons why they've kept me on the television program, because of the fact that I show my sources of information. I show my sources. So don't get vexed with me, right? I am showing the sources.
Yes. Again, coming back to the last part of the question, though, in terms of persons who are experiencing renal impairments, can they consume the carnivore diet, especially with the intake of the protein consumption?
Right. So it's not the problem is not the intake of the protein, you know, it's what you intake in the protein with.
Okay.
And that's one of the problems. Now, this article that I have up here now, right, as you see, I highlighted the date, 12th of November, 2022. These things are current.
Yes.
It's current, so a lot of people aren't aware of it. Right, so they aren't aware of the correction. It says red meat is not a health risk. New study slams years of shoddy research. Right, this is why the reviews were done. Because now I think it's as of 2009, you now have to state your conflict of interest in your studies. That's a law now, right? So you do a study paper, you have to put your conflict of interest. The other day I was reading a study from Psychology Today, and guy wrote an article and talking about how eating plant-based food is good for the environment and it has more nutrients. Yes. Right, but in the bracket where you say it has more nutrients, you put based on the labeling, right? Because it has something called bioavailability, right? And plant-based food sources are not as bioavailable as animal-based food sources. So though it might have much in something in a plant-based food, the human body can't use it, right? And most people are unaware of this, right? So that's why you put in brackets based on the labeling, right? And it just so happened that one of the I think it was Beyond Meat and another meat company had a class action lawsuit against them because they used an old method of checking protein in food, right? An outdated method in order for them to get a high protein score and when it was tested with the more accurate method, the protein level in it was way below what they had on their labeling. So it was class action lawsuit, all right? So this here shows that red meat is not a health risk, and new study slams the years of shoddy research. A lot of the studies that have been done in the past before on meat, the research, when you look at it, was very questionable, right? And back then, they didn't have to put their conflicts of interest, like the study that I mentioned there with the saying that the meat is good for the plant stuff is good for the environment. When you check, the guy actually works for a lot of vegan companies. So, you know, he's a paid consultant. So a lot of his salary comes from those companies. So that's why he wrote that article, right?
I think there's a saying, you follow the money, right?
Always follow the money. Always follow the money. When you follow the money, you're going to see why certain things are being said. All right. So this is an article. People look up these headings and find it and read them, right? Stop taking people's word for things and go and read it yourself. I know growing up, they have always said, you know, reading, always read, right? I hated reading when I'm growing up. But what I realized is that I hated reading novels. Give me a textbook, I would read it. Do not give me a novel, right? Don't give me a novel. I don't have the energy to read a fictional story, or I don't have the energy for those things. But
Give me hard facts. Hard facts.
give me hard facts. Give
Right.
me facts, and that is what I would read, because I'm increasing in knowledge. I'm increasing in information that not inflammation, information that I can apply to my life and make a difference in not just my life, but in the lives of others.
Yeah.
All right. So I always tell people, give me facts. Give me facts. In fact, the other day, a young lady told me, oh, why you can't argue with emotions? Why you always have to use data and facts? I said, well, what's the sense of arguing? Nobody will ever win, right? So I always come with data and statistics. That's what I do, right? I will bring data and statistics and bring forth evidence. Because to me, if you have to have a debate on any topic, you need some kind of marker, some kind of goalpost, some kind of ground that is solid, right? Or else the goalpost would keep moving, right? If it's just based on emotions, all right? So when it comes to this, we understand that humans, based on our current biology today, that we are not omnivores, we are hypercarnivores. And if you look at how we eat today, we are hypercarnivores, which means a carnivore is classed as an animal whose diet is over 70% animal-based. We are hypercarnivores, meaning much more than 70% of our diet should come from animal-based foods. But look at our diets today. We are biologically hypercarnivores eating a herbivore diet. And we are wondering why we are sick. So in my business, I am able to reverse diseases, right? Because I am correcting the deviance from our biological dietary pathway. All I'm doing is putting people back on track with what we are biologically designed to consume. And that is what corrects all their issues. So when my clients have their diabetes, like type 1 diabetes, reverse within 4 days, right? From taking insulin injections for 7 years, morning and evening, to after 4 days of dietary changes and you're off insulin, your blood sugar level back to normal, and it's now a year and a half since, and you haven't had to use insulin because your blood sugar level back, and that says a lot, right? So from type 1 diabetes to people with polycystic ovarian syndrome, who now when they go and they do their checkup, the gynecologist is telling them it looked like they never had it, right? yeah, when they go by the gynecologist to do whatever checks and whatnot, and they do the ultrasound and so forth, and I say, well, it looked like you never had it, right? So there are so much of people getting their issues reversed. Androgenetic alopecia.
Yes.
I've had a client who, within her 30s, her hair was looking like she was 85.
Yeah.
And after 2 months, she has an afro, right? So these are the types of results that I've been getting, right? Blood pressure. But blood pressure is one of the quickest ones to reverse. These, right? Type 2 diabetes, depending on your age, a week to 2 weeks, right? Reversal. I remember a cousin of mine in the US was doing, had a little juicing group doing herbal stuff, juicing and whatnot. And she said, look, one of my clients, look at what she said after 3 months of juicing. She was like, look, my blood sugar level has reduced. It's still a little bit high, but it reduced and whatnot. And then I shared her testimony of one of my clients. I say, well, their diabetes gone in a week, right? So your client is 3 months and they just got a little reduction in their blood sugar level, but my client diabetes gone completely within a week, right?
What was your client's A1C when they started?
I can't remember the figures. Right?
Hey,
but these are the results that I've been getting with people going back with the carnivore diet.
There's a question about does red meat have any side effects? I mean, past research, which you just debunked, said that they have tied red meat to increase risk of diabetes, cardiovascular, certain types of cancers. Studies have pointed that it is an elevation for colorectal cancer.
All right. So let me show you what causes colorectal cancer. All right, because this is what going to shock people a bit. Give me 1 second to find it.
Keep your questions coming. We are happy to be able to engage Satwayo. So if you don't want to put your mics on and ask your questions, feel free to send me a private set. I have like maybe over 15 questions coming in here so far.
Okay, good. Hopefully I could pull up the information as quick. Now I have these things and these different topics, especially with colon cancer, with these studies that found what one of the causes of colon cancer. But of course, it's just for me to pull it up. It's just for me to find it. So
while you're searching for that, is it that someone who has never started the carnivore diet before, is it something that they can just immediately start? Like, let's say, okay, we've had this webinar and they want to try carnivore tomorrow. Is it that you can jump right into it, or you have to? You
can, but you also have to know how.
Yes.
So that's why I tell people, liaise with me, do a consultation so I could show you how, right? What people are worried for is that people need to understand that this is not a fad diet. This is the diet that the body is biologically designed for. So when people go to it, the body is actually glad for it. So the response is not like other diets where you have to break yourself in and you still have to eat some carbohydrates here, some this here, some that here. No, it's one that you can go straight into. But how you go straight into it is that's where people need the guidance on. All right. So yes, it's a diet you can today decide to cut off all carbohydrates and plant-based foods and go straight carnivore, and you would not die or get sick or end up in the hospital because it's what your body is designed for. But like I said, people need to be guided on how to go into it, right? They need to be guided on how to, right? So with that, when it comes to colon and bowel cancers, all right, look what it says here. This is from News Medical Life Sciences. Antioxidant-rich foods may increase risk of bowel cancer. Studies find. Date 29th of July 2020. All right. I will read from here. Okay, let me read the first two. Hopefully I read it fast enough. It is a fact that has long baffled doctors. Cancer in the small intestine is quite rare, whereas colorectal cancer, a neighboring thought, much smaller organ, is one of the leading causes of cancer deaths for men and women. What is it about the colon that seems to attract cancer? To answer this question, Professor, Nerai, I'll just put in Nerai because that's some difficult name, at Hebrew University of Jerusalem, Lautenberg Center of Immunology and Cancer Research, and his team led by Dr. Eliran Kadosh, found that cancer mutations are not necessarily bad actors in and of themselves. In fact, in certain microenvironments like the gut, these mutations can actually help the body to fight cancer, not spread it. However, if the gut microbiome produces high level of metabolites like those found in certain bacteria and antioxidant-rich foods like black tea and hot cocoa, then it acts as a particularly hospitable environment to mutate genes and will accelerate the growth of bowel cancers. Their breakthrough findings were published today in Nature magazine, right? What I want to come down to is it have a gene called the TP53. So it says that the TP53 is a gene found in every cell. It produces a protein called P53, which acts as the cell's barrier, suppressing genetic mutation in the cell. However, when P53 becomes damaged, it no longer protects the cell. Quite the opposite. It drives the cancer, helping tumors grow, spread and grow. To test their theory that gut flora was at play, the researchers introduced mutated P53 cancer-driving proteins into the gut. Amazingly, the small intestines reacted by converting the mutated P53 cancer-driving back to normal P53, turning into super suppressors that were better at suppressing cancer growth than healthy P53 proteins. However, when mutated P53 was introduced into the colon, they did no switcheroo, but stayed true to their driving cancer nature and promoted the cancerous spread. We were riveted by what we saw, recalls Ben Nerai. The gut bacteria had a Jekyll and Hyde effect on the mutated P53 proteins. In the small bowel, they totally switched course and attacked the cancerous cells, whereas in the colon, they promoted the cancerous cells, right? This is what I want to come to here. what's in this flora that makes colon cancer spread so quickly? A close analysis identified the culprit, gut flora that produces metabolites, aka antioxidants, which are found in high concentrations in foods such as black tea, hot chocolate, nuts, and berries. Tellingly, when the scientists fed mice an antioxidant-rich diet, their gut flora accelerated P53's cancer-driving mode. This finding is of particular concern to those patients with a family history of colorectal cancer, right? So I want to stop there. Of course, people could take note of you could take note of the heading, because if you Google search the heading or any search engine, you would get the articles and you could pull up the studies yourself, because I'm encouraging people, go and read the information yourself. Do not just take my word for it.
Yes.
Go and read it yourself. Find it.
I have a patient who is in her 60s. She said, you mentioned that you can help reverse type 2 diabetes, meaning by doing the carnivore diet. But you also stated that it depends on your age. I am a 60-year-old woman who have been living with diabetes, type 2 diabetes, for more than maybe 20 plus years. Would it be easy for me to reverse my diabetes if I started this diet?
Right. When I say depend on your age, I mean it depends on your age and how long it would take to reverse. Right? Meaning that it would reverse, but it might just take a little longer. So like the 1 year old, not the 1 year, the 10-year-old, 4 days, and other adults, seniors, people have done over in their 50s and 60s. It took a week to 2 weeks. Right? So
Right.
it's not that because you're 68, it would not happen. It can happen, it would happen.
Even and she's interacting while you talk. She said, even if I'm heavily dependent on insulin and metformin and stuff like that.
Right. All my clients end up off of their medication.
Okay.
Every single one.
Right. You made mention of a lot of diseases, type 2 diabetes, colorectal cancer, cardiovascular. Do you have any studies that specifically talks about autoimmune diseases? I mean, most of our audience here, those living with autoimmune conditions, many have logged on for that glimmer of hope in terms of helping with the management of chronic fatigue, chronic pain, even inflammation, because I mean, essentially lupus is an inflammatory condition.
Inflammatory,
right? It is known that the carnivore diet is a disease that helps to eliminate inflammatory foods, because you're consuming just meat and you have basically stopped consuming all the markers that are known to cause inflammation in the body. What would be your advice now for persons living with an autoimmune disease as they move forward with the information that you have given to them? Of course, you have an open door policy they can book a consultation with you so that you can basically walk them through this journey. What about studies that you have come across? I know you research very heavily with regards to autoimmune diseases like lupus and rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis.
Right. So I group all autoimmune disorders as just the body becoming hypersensitive. The immune system just becomes hypersensitive. The first webinar I did with you all, I went in and I was looking specifically at seed oils, because autoimmune diseases and lupus, I think I even told you this, that your understanding of it is different from my understanding of it, right? Because you have grown up with it and it have affected you your whole life. You would see it as, this is a very debilitating illness that can affect all aspects of your life, and, kind of put you in a situation as in a kind of handicap situation, all right? My perspective of it is just a side effect of a poor diet, right? So my view, because of my understanding of the human body, diseases is very simple to me. Of course, it's not simple to the people that has them, right? But to me, it's very simple. This is how it's easy for me to reverse them in people, because of how I understand the human body, right? When we understand the human body and we look at inflammation in the human body, we have to talk about your omega-3s and your omega-6, right? Omega-3 is anti-inflammatory, meaning it reduces inflammation. And omega-6 is pro-inflammatory. The omega-3 and omega-6 ratio, it's supposed to be in nature, is usually 1 omega-3 to between 1 to 4 omega-6. Yes, the omega-6 is supposed to be higher than your omega-3 levels, because if your omega-3 levels is higher than your omega-6 levels, if you get a broken skin, a cut, a needle prick, or any type of wound, because your omega-3 is very high or higher than your omega-6, you would not get an immune response. So then infection is going to take place, right? The omega-6 has to be higher so that there would be a cytokine response to attack and destroy any foreign thing that is coming into the body, right? Now, many of the foods that people eat today, that omega-3 to 6 ratio is very high. One of the main culprits of such is seed and vegetable oils, which people utilize because it is cheaper than buying something like ghee. Yeah. Ghee is expensive. Yeah. Seed oils are very cheap. While you would pay sometimes how much it is, $300 or something dollars.
$310 for a tin, yes.
For a tin of ghee, you'll pay $20-something for a bottle of vegetable oil, right? But the vegetable oil, the omega-1 to 6 ratio is 1 omega-3, which is anti-inflammatory, to 15 to 17, omega-6, which means vegetable oil is going to cause your immune system to go on hyperdrive. So it's basically having a military service. Strangely enough, this is actually something the Nazis did. The Nazis actually gave their soldiers methamphetamines. And this is why they were able to march non-stop for 3 days. So they cover a lot of distance over a short space of time. So it is your immune system on meth. That is what happens when you're using seed oil. So people that love to eat things like Kentucky Fried Chicken, is not the chicken, no. It is the oil that the chicken is bathed in, right? And you're consuming all these fried foods. Do not expect your autoimmune issue to go anywhere. It would only get worse. Right. Seed oils is one of the biggest contributing factors. I class seed oils as one of the worst things you can consume, right? These seed and vegetable oils. But people are buying it and using it because it is cheaper. It also have other harmful chemicals in it called like oxane, which is a petrochemical that they use to extract the oils from the plant. The other thing is it has to be refined at high temperature, so it becomes a reactive oxygen species, which causes oxidation, which means it oxidizes, causes your cells to oxidize, which also is inflammation as well. So look at that. The omega-6 level is too high. That's inflammation there. Reactive oxygen species, that's also inflammation there. Hexane, which is a petrochemical that people are consuming, also going to cause inflammation. And then you also have it because it is a plant extract is coming out with all the plant-based, natural plant-based pesticides in it, also causes inflammation. So when it comes to autoimmune disorders to me is just simply a side effect
of poor diet.
Right? Of poor diet. So you correct the diet and you're going to correct the autoimmune disorder.
I have the mother of a 15-year-old who has lupus. Her lupus has been so aggressive that she began erupting in sores all over her body. She started experiencing weakness of muscle. I think her daughter is somewhat facing, maybe a mild paralysis, where her limbs are no longer being able to it's like tight and very stiff. It cannot straighten out. Is there hope for someone like that? I mean, Listra, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I mean, I think this is a really good forum for you to just ask your question. I know we spoke earlier and you were very, very depressed about what has been taking place with, Jason. You can feel free to just ask your question and let's see how we can arrange for you to have a consultation with Seth Wayo so he can better advise you where Jason is concerned. 15 years old, unable to walk, unable to move about. It's a really bad case, Seth. Listra, are you on?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Yes.
Or evening.
So I really wanted you to just benefit from this in terms of asking your question. I know you were asking me, but I'm not the one qualified here to really respond to some of these things. But you've heard the information. I know you have been doing your own in terms of managing Jason's diet. What are your thoughts?
I want to ask a question. Could you give me an idea of what the child eats on a daily basis?
She eats like rice and chicken, like tuna and fig, green fig. She does use like more ground food and fish. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Right. So, well, already. And what does she drink?
She drinks things like water and let's give her a Gatorade.
Okay. All right.
And her body muscles and joints just keep like shrinking and getting more tight, like tight. This kind of where the muscles and ligaments just keep tightening, and her skin is really dry.
Okay. Right. Well, from what you tell me that she consumes already, I have an idea of what's causing the problem and how to fix it. Right. So it's something that could be fixed. Hopefully, we could address it as soon as possible, so that the child could start back regaining their health. All right. So, but it's something that can be fixed. Something that can be fixed. It might seem almost impossible, but trust me, it's something that can be fixed. All right. Permit me to read through, because I'm going to read over an article that I did in the first webinar. All right, because I want to, I think this should be a kind of anthem, but I want to get people to internalize it and understand it a lot. So this is from the American Council on Science and Health. For people that might say, oh, the American Council on Science and Health and whatnot is a corrupt organization. For those who might say that, you could go and pull up they are just writing an article based on a study done by the Cancer Society, right? So don't bash them because people will want to bash me for reading a study, right? Bash the people that did the study, question them, right? But this year, as the topic says here, the heading, 99.99% of pesticides we eat are produced by plants themselves. That there says it all. Right? But you ask anybody what that means, they'll say, yeah, the pesticides are spraying on it, because for so much of years we have been told that the pesticides in plants come from the farmers spraying chemicals in it. When in reality, no, plants produces the pesticides themselves, right? And I'll read the article so that we could grasp it and understand it, right? It says, and the word pesticide is misunderstood nearly to the same extent as the word chemical. People have been led to believe, largely by the organic food industry and environmental activists, that pesticides are unnatural, dangerous, and do not belong in the food supply. But this defies the basic understanding of biology. A pesticide is any chemical, natural or human-made, that is designed to kill another organism. Using that broad definition, there are probably hundreds of thousands of pesticides in the natural environment. As it turns out, biological warfare was invented and perfected by Mother Nature. For example, some bacteria and fungi produce antibiotics to kill other microbes. We don't call these antibiotics pesticides, but that's exactly what they are. To a bacterial cell, a microbe of a different species is often nothing more than a competitive pest that should die. So it produces chemicals with the intention of killing it. That's a pesticide. Plants do the same thing. From a plant's point of view, many insects are nothing more than dangerous leaf-eating parasites that should die. So plants produce insecticides like caffeine and nicotine to keep those obnoxious six-legged vegetarians away. They also produce pesticides to keep the furry four-legged vegetarians away too. And guess what? When we eat plants, we are eating those pesticides too. A paper co-authored in 1990 by the Venerable Bruce Ames found that 99.99% of the pesticides we consume in our diet are produced by the plants themselves. Given the popularity of organic food and the unscientific mythology underlying it, his findings are more relevant now than ever, right? I like how we refer to the organic food as unscientific, right? Because the organic food industry is just rumors that they bounce from corporation to corporation. It's just bouncing around rumors. Yeah, organic is healthier, organic is healthier. Organic food is not healthier, right? It is not. It is good marketing, but people don't know that. So they up the price for organic stuff, people pay more money for it, and it's no different, right? The difference is 0.01% different. That's the difference, right? It says natural pesticides in your food. According to Dr. Ames' team, every plant produces roughly a few dozen toxins, some of which at a high enough dose would be toxic to humans. Cabbage produces at least 49 known pesticides. Given the ubiquity of natural pesticides, Dr. Ames estimates that Americans eat about 1.5 grams of natural pesticides per person per day, which is about 10,000 times more than they eat of synthetic pesticide residues. So while people are there trying to duck the pesticides being sprayed on the plant, they are consuming 10,000 times more, right? By going with the organic, because it don't make a difference. The plant itself produces pesticides. That is how a plant defends themselves, because a plant cannot run, it cannot fly, it cannot swim. It only stays put. And because it stays put, it must have a strong defense as an offense. That's why they create these compounds within themselves. So as soon as you break a stem, you break a leaf, right? You bite it, you chew it. It releases these chemicals to hopefully poison whatever animal or insect is trying to consume it, to deter it from consuming it. Right? This is why cigarettes have 70 different chemicals in it. And people think those chemicals are man-made, but what does the study show? Organic tobacco and farm tobacco makes no difference. You smoke the two, you're still going to end up sick the same way. It makes absolutely no difference, because people keep thinking it's the man-made stuff that contaminating it. Nature is very brilliant, right? Nature is brilliant, and nature knows how to protect itself. And we need to understand that we keep thinking that everything in nature is safe. But the reality is, in nature, everything in nature either wants to eat you or wants to kill you, right? So this is why in nature, the law is survival of the fittest, survival of the strongest. That's the laws in nature. We have gotten so used to living in the bubble construct of society, where we are no longer interacting directly with nature, and we think everything in nature is so nice, peaceful, and safe. What does happen when people get lost on a hike, right? That is when they realize that nature isn't easy, right? And we need to understand that. So let me continue reading this here. It says, furthermore, Dr. Ames estimates that we consume 5,000 to 10,000 different natural pesticides every day, many of which cause cancer when tested in lab animals. Dr. Ames then pens quite possibly the best paragraph ever written in scientific literature. And this is the best paragraph ever written here. It says, rodent carcinogens are present in the following foods. Now, what do they mean by rodent carcinogens? Meaning when they tested it in lab animals, it caused cancer in the lab animals.
Right, yes.
Right? So that's what it means by rodent carcinogens. So it says, present in the following food: anise, apple, apricot, banana, basil, broccoli, Brussels sprout, cabbage, cantaloupe, caraway, carrot, cauliflower, celery, cherries, cinnamon, cloves, cocoa, coffee, colored greens, comfrey, herb, tea, currants, dill, eggplant, endive, fennel, grapefruit juice, grapes, guava, honey, honeydew melon, horseradish, kale, lentils, lettuce, mango, mushrooms, mustard, nutmeg, orange juice, parsley, parsnip, peach, pear, peas, black pepper, pineapple, plum, potato, radish, raspberry, rosemary, sesame seeds, tarragon, tea, tomato, and turnips. Thus, it is probable that almost every fruit and vegetable in the supermarket contains natural plant pesticides that are rodent carcinogens. The level of these rodent carcinogens in the above plants are commonly thousands of times higher than the levels of synthetic pesticides.
Hold the fort there, Seth. So is it that we've just gotten a list of what we should not even touch?
Right. These are things we should definitely not even touch, but it isn't all.
Isn't all, right?
Right. Because if I pull up the actual article, the actual study, let me see if I could find it here. The actual study paper from 1990. Hopefully I have it here. Just to find it. All right. I know I have it, and it's just to put it up.
Sure.
Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second here. Because I know they call this time oh, look at here, right? You see when airtime that we wasting.
Not at
right,
all.
in media. All right, so this is the actual study from back in 1990. Let me go down so that we could see who conducted the study. All right, let's see here which organization. This work was supported by the National Cancer Institute, Outstanding Investigator Grant, and I give you a number here, and the National Institute of an Environmental Health Science Center grant, and by contract, the Director of Office on Energy Research of Office of Health and Environmental Research of the U.S. Department of Energy. Credible. This is government financed studies, right? And these here, all these here are pesticides, natural pesticides, 49 natural pesticides and metabolites that are found in cabbage. This is cabbage alone, right? These are all the natural pesticides and metabolites found in it. So these all causes harm to the human body, all right? So this study was done because later on, if you get this study and you read it, you would see where the person that conducted the study is saying that there is a bias. For example, he says, surprisingly, few plant toxins have been tested for carcinogenicity, right? Among 1,052 chemicals tested in at least one species in chronic cancer tests, only 52 are naturally occurring plant pesticides. So, and what he later on said is there is a bias. We test more man-made products and we just ignore compounds and stuff in nature because he says nature, so it's safe. So out of 1,000 stuff tested, 1,052 stuff tested, only 52 was things from the environment. And guess what? It goes on to say, among the 1,052 chemicals tested in at least one species in chronic cancer tests, only 52 are naturally occurring plant pesticides. Among these, about half, which is 27, are carcinogenic. Even though only a tiny portion of the plant toxins in our diet have been tested so far, the 27 natural pesticides that are rodent carcinogens are present in the following foods, and that was the list of the following foods that we read out there. Of course, today we have even found more. We have even found more in plant-based foods.
Listen,
right?
This is such an eye-opener. This
Yeah.
is such an eye-opener. I would encourage everyone to just take a note of that article. You go and you read it for yourself. Don't just
Right.
take his word for it. You just Google the dietary pesticides. Is that the name of the study?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you could
But
look for it.
Is there a way that you can probably link these?
Well, this one, let me see here.
Let's
If
just
I
send
go
the
back.
websites, the websites, and so we can just link it to this webinar so that persons can go and do their research. For those of you who are interested and want to, pursue this, we have a patient asking, what about metabolic conditions such as obesity, type 2 diabetes? They've been linked to an increased risk of persons with the COVID-19 variant, as well as an increased risk of experiencing serious symptoms once infected. What impact would a carnivore diet have, and would there be side effects?
All right. Now, of course, when people come with COVID, that is an area that I have legal challenges against the government on, right? And to date, no scientific institution in the world, I have to repeat that again, no scientific institution in the world has isolated and purified the COVID-19 virus. No scientific institution in the world has isolated. Now, people might be saying, what does he mean by that? A virus could only exist if it was first isolated and purified, what we call sensu stricto isolation.
Say that
It
again.
has sensu stricto isolation. It has never been done for COVID. I've sent in freedom of information requests. I've collected freedom of information requests from around the world, 211 requests from over 40 countries, and not a single scientific entity, including the CDC and the FDA, none of them have ever isolated COVID-19. This is why the PCR test has been discontinued. I have documents from the CDC stating that they calibrated the PCR test not with a viral isolate of COVID because they did not have any. So they just simply purchased a genetic sequence from a gene bank. This is why we had so much of asymptomatic cases. The Lancet have written and published, which is the third leading medical journal in the world, that after the first wave of COVID, all the other waves, because COVID, the PCR test cannot differentiate between a virus and an exosome, were false positives, right? Were false positive, right? Now, I have taken up legal challenges against the government. It's going to take some years before, because Trinidad legal system is very slow, so it's going to take some years, but I can guarantee you that I would come out victorious, because I have, in the previous cases, thus far, I have been victorious, right? So when it comes to COVID-19, what they're calling to be COVID-19 is just simply your body is shedding from the damage of what you have been consuming, right? And other environmental factors, right? So people need to understand this. And carnival time, after carnival, you always hear people say, no, it have a carnival bug.
Yes.
Carnival bug going around, carnival bug going around, right? Them foreigners come in the country and they spread thing in the country, right? No, that is not it. People want to be consuming alcohol, one of the most toxic things you could consume, and we expect it to have no side effect on the human body. We consume alcohol, which every single part of your body that alcohol touches puts it at risk for developing cancer. From your mouth to your larynx and pharynx to your esophagus, to your stomach, to your intestines, every single part of your body that alcohol touches, it puts it at risk for cancer. Right. We want to be consuming that in volumes unprecedented for the years, because people mightn't drink, usually people don't drink as much as they drink for carnival. And then when we get sick, we think it's somebody else that got us sick. Right? Yeah. That's how naive we are. That's how ignorant we are when it comes to our own health. Right. We think we could do our bodies anything we want, right? And nothing's supposed to happen. The body not supposed to respond. You drink alcohol, alcohol produces acetaldehyde. Acetaldehyde is very toxic to the human body. Yes. Based on the studies done, the actual studies which they are telling countries now to bring restrictions on with regards to alcohol consumption, the actual studies, they say the only safe amount of alcohol somebody under the age of 40 could consume is 1/10 of a US beer, which has an alcohol level of 3.5%. 1/10. Trinidad beer is 5%.
Yeah.
Right? Let me use a ratio that we could understand. 1/10 of a shot of a 40% alcohol. So take a shot glass and divide it in 10. That is the only legal, safe amount of alcohol an individual is supposed to consume.
That's a drip on your tongue.
That is a drip on your tongue, right? That is literally a drip on your tongue. And carnival time, whoo, people drinking more than that, way more.
You know, that is all inclusive.
Correct.
Drink how much you want.
Right? And people are drinking and drinking. And when your cells start to get damaged, because for your body to combat acetaldehyde, your glutathione stores is depleted. Mm-hmm. Glutathione is the #1 antioxidant in the human body, which prevents oxidative stress from occurring. Yeah. That is gone within your first drink.
Right.
So now your cells are going to start to take damage, right? And then you wonder why we are getting sick. Blame the foreigners, right? We blame the foreigners because we left our understanding of our own biology into the hands of the authorities, right?
Yes, I have a question from someone who has been living with, well, he has not been even able to get a proper diagnosis. He's dealing with major symptoms, neuromuscular, sensory, as well as brain fog. He is up to now able to get a diagnosis, but he's asking, what's the best way to prepare meat to eat for maximum nutrition absorption? Meats like chicken and fish. I'm unable to consume the others, but chicken and fish, what would be the maximum, the best way to prepare these meats for the maximum nutrition absorption?
All right, so I would say, one, don't use chicken, right? Don't use chicken. Chicken is low on zinc and iron. All right, so even in studies done for infants, they don't recommend chicken. This is why they recommend red meat. In fact, I promised to show you all that. So I would do so and show you all that recommendation that was made by an institution that actually instructs the FDA, right? So that we can get a better idea. So red meat is what people want to turn to. But with this individual, I would say either coming to see me or book an online appointment, right? So that I could deal with you more directly. I don't like just to give general stuff like that because most people would end up either under eating, doing something off. It's usually something off that they do, right? Because they are not being guided, and then they would include stuff into there. I had a client and she did a consultation. She made changes because she suffered from epileptic seizures. She made changes to her diet. 3 weeks passed, no seizure, because she gets seizures on a regular basis. And then she messaged me to tell me if she gets a seizure, something wrong. I say, okay, well, jump back on for a follow-up consultation, right? She said, well, I don't know, I feel as the diet. I say, okay, what you consume. But well, what happened, it was my father's birthday, so I had some cake and ice cream, but that shouldn't have caused. You saw what happened there, right? She consumed some cake and ice cream and ignored that and then blamed the diet, right? And that is something that happens a lot.
She blamed the carnivore diet. She didn't blame the fact that she
right. So 3 weeks, no seizures. A day after consuming cake and ice cream, she got a seizure. And she blamed the carnivore diet. Right? I've encountered that many times, many times. Right? It's just.
And it's a mindset. I was not going to say, what about persons who are going to find consuming meat or consuming a particular type of meat or meats very challenging? Because I mean, a lot of the clientele who are logged on here are those who are living with lupus. Many of them are, not working because of their condition. Some of them face a lot of challenges financially and are unable to afford, really to look after themselves, but they're managing and they're going to try their best. Persons who would have consumed, and I'm speaking from experience because that's my story, starting the carnivore diet, it would have been a real mindset to shift that mindset, because when you live on disability, your food card is cut and you are just stuck with a fixed amount, $2,000 a month, you have your mortgage to pay, there's only so much left to eat. And you are facing high food prices, you're facing so many obstacles, but you want to stick and commit to this because you understand and you're seeing the statistics. You are also, because you would have tried it, you've been doing it and you started to see a difference in your body. What options are there for persons who just simply cannot afford to go buy the beef? They can't afford to get the pork belly. They can't afford to consume the fresh stuff. Like, for instance, I know we had that discussion and I was leaning towards getting the beef in the can, which is corned beef. I didn't know. Honestly, I honestly did not know. It's only when you told me, but I had already bought a whole bunch of tuna, and I think it was sausages, right?
Mhm.
Now, in my mind, that's meat, but it's processed meat. So I want you to just explain the difference when you're consuming, because a lot of people are going to walk away here thinking, okay, once it's meat in a can, I can still consume it. I want people to really be clear and understand the difference by consuming the the fresh meat as opposed to the canned meat. It's not the same, right, Sat? Help me here.
Correct.
It's
Right.
not.
The study that I read showing that meat does not affect glycemic control and inflammatory biomarkers. That study was looking at processed meat and unprocessed meat. The meat that does not cause the inflammation and the
Cancer.
glycemic control,
Yes.
right, was the unprocessed meat, right? So the unprocessed meat, which is also listed, was the beef, the pork, the venison, the lamb, whatnot, right? The elk, those things. That did not cause any inflammatory response. Sausage has a high amount of high fructose corn syrup in it, right? So it has a high amount of sugar. This is why people like sausage so much, because it has a lot of sugar in it. Sugar is 8 to 9 times more addictive than cocaine, right? Yeah, so sugar is very addictive. In fact, it is the most addictive substance, and it is legal, right? It is the most addictive substance, and it is legal, and it has contributed to the most amount of health issues in the world, right? And people would defend sugar with their life because they are so addicted to it and they're unaware. The only difference is that the psychedelic effect of it is not like cocaine or heroin or anything like that. So you don't get that instant high where your days off and you're dribbling on yourself and stuff like that. All right. But it is heavily addictive, right? To the point that if they put a ban on sugar today, I can see riots happening in Trinidad. We don't riot for nothing. But I see if they put a ban on sugar in Trinidad and Tobago, we're going to have some riots, right? That's how addictive it is. And sugar is very affordable.
Yes.
That's the other thing, right? So this is a big contributor to poor health, right? This whole sugar craze. One of the articles I shared, I didn't read that part of it, but it says our genome have genes turned off to enable a fat-rich diet. And chimpanzees has genome turned on to enable a sugar-rich diet, meaning that we are not biologically designed to be living off of sugar. Your body can produce sugar if it needs it. We are designed to consume high fats and high proteins, right? Not sugar. You could live your entire life. I haven't eaten sugar in years. When I say I haven't eaten sugar in years, I am talking about all forms of sugar, meaning all saccharides. That includes all fruits, all vegetables, all bread and pasta, all flour products. Every form of sugar I have not eaten in years.
So
right?
I'm smiling like if I just got caught with my hand in the cookie jar, because all this while when I thought that I was doing the right thing and I was doing really good, really and truly, I was consuming a lot of the underlying sugars, a lot of the processed chemicals, because when you look at all of these items that are in a can, the reason why they can stay in a can, it's because it's processed and it has a lot of things that are laden there that it's really going to be to my own detriment. So for someone who is faced with these challenges, I remember once you said eggs are a superfood, and it's quite affordable. So is it fair to say that even if it's just consuming that for the time being, at least up that, is that a fair statement?
Right, and eggs has bioavailability when it comes to protein higher than that of meats.
Right.
The only thing that beats back egg in bioavailability is human breast milk. Right? So
I would
egg,
know I never had it set.
right? Well, all babies. Well,
I
hopefully
know.
all babies. Hopefully all babies. Because a lot of people don't breastfeed their kids, they grow them up on formula,
Yes.
which is what actually the article that I was supposed to be sharing with you all, right? Which
Yes.
is this article here, with regards to meat helps make every bite count. Meat helps make every bite count. An ideal first food for infants is from Nutrition Today. I'll read through probably the first 2 paragraphs, and then people could probably look for the article. You could just put in this heading. Meat helps make every bite count, and it would come up. All right, it says new evidence-based dietary guidelines for feeding infants from birth to 24 months old recommend meat as an ideal first complementary food starting at 6 months old. Infants need a variety of nutrient-dense foods, including foods that are rich in bioavailable zinc and iron. Keyword here, bioavailable, because plants have zinc and iron, but they aren't bioavailable. All right. Because infants and toddlers eat small quantities of food, it is critical to make every bite count in the early years. New parents are often unsure of optimal complementary feeding practices. The goal of this article is to review the role of red meat as a potential first complementary food for infants. For the first time ever, the 2020 to 2025 edition of the Dietary Guidelines for Americans, DGA, include guidance for feeding infants and toddlers from birth to 24 months old. These evidence-based guidelines emphasize the vital role that foods rich in iron and zinc, including meat, play in meeting the nutrient requirement in the early years. The unique nutrient matrix of iron-rich red meat, such as beef, makes it an ideal first complementary food to help meet an infant's nutrient needs. I'll stop there for now. No, let me read this last one here. This one here. Exclusive breastfeeding is recommended as the ideal source of nutrition for infants during the first 6 months of life, with continued breastfeeding until 12 months old and beyond. Starting at approximately 6 months old, it is critical to introduce nutrient-dense complementary foods to meet growing nutrient demand. Now, this is a long article. It goes into a lot of information on it, even how to prepare the red meat for the child and whatnot. All right, so it's a good information. And this is, as it says, from the Dietary Guidelines for America, right? So this is not a fly-by-night article. This is the guidelines, right? This is what the CDC publishes, right? This is what the FDA publishes, right? Because it's from the Dietary Guidelines from America for Americans. So this is not my opinion. This is nutritional facts, right? In fact, how did our ancestors survive? They never had formula back then, right? And today we just also into this whole formula thing. So we start messing up children from an early age, right? From an early age. I remember, you know, over the years, sometimes I might be in town or whatnot, and I might see clients walking with snack, and they'll say, no, this is not for me, it's for the kids. And in my mind, I'm like, a kid's body is more sensitive than yours.
Yeah.
So if it's not good for the adult, it is 10 times or 100 times worse for the child, right? But we poison our children, right? I have to use that strong language. We poison our children and say, well, we're trying to make them feel happy, right? To me, I grew up not being able to run more than 40 meters without losing my breath and having to puff an inhaler. To me, I would have had a better and happier childhood if I could have run, right? I would have had a better and happier childhood if I was not allowed to eat those snacks that was causing me to be asthmatic, right? Because I got rid of my asthma, must be about 3 or 4 years ago, right? When I made the changes to my diet, my asthma went completely, right? So you're studying the short term, or the child might laugh and giggle right here and there, but you leave it up to a child, they would eat ice cream for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah.
Right? So we as the adults, as the parents, should not allow the child to dictate what they eat. Right? But as the adult, you should make it your duty to understand what is required by the human body. And you are to eat based on the design of the digestive system of the human body, not based on your blood type, which is pseudoscience, right? Not based on acidic and alkaline, because people don't understand that your body, your body have a whole system designed to deal with acidity and whatnot, right? And you need acid in your stomach in order to break down proteins, so to get the nutrients, to get the amino acids and whatnot, right? But because the general public have left science into the hands of the authorities, and we have become so ignorant on our own biology, we are being fooled day in, day out. You know how much times for the day people would send me TikTok video, hey, look what this man say, and I would ask a simple question, where is his sources? But once you post a video and say, mix this, turmeric and this and that and the other, and drink this and this is good for that, you don't have to post no evidence. And there are people, yes, that is good to drink, that is good to drink. I see this one and this thing did that, right? That is not how it's supposed to go, right? We're supposed to be requiring evidence. Where is your proof? Where is your data? And we don't do that. We don't do that. So people are blindly following things. And which health issue has reduced? None. 20 years ago.
You know, it's very interesting. I know I may get hung for actually saying this, but I know the medical advisory board that's affiliated with my organization had to chime in when they saw the ad, you know, and they basically kind of had to, you know, intervene and said, you know, we as an organization have to put that disclaimer out, because where's the research? And I started to get a lot of backlash, but I went ahead with it because I think it's important to give both sides of the fences, because you have the medical experts pushing the agenda, pushing the narrative that you have to take hydroxychloroquine, you have to do the chemo, you have to do the rituximab, but there is not much dialogue on the alternative aspect. There are options beyond just swallowing pills, you know. And another question is being asked here right now: how long should you stay on the carnivore diet, and are there long-term effects of the carnivore diet? Like, for instance, as you've heard me ask you repeatedly in many ways, people are saying, I think there was an article, November 15, 2022, the person did not say from where, but they said the carnivore diet could damage the colon and degrade gut health. In fact, changes to the microbe eating nothing but meat could colonize the gut with bacteria, which increases the risk for heart disease. Animal protein is high in I don't know how you pronounce that, a type of amino acid.
L-carnitine.
I think so, yeah, L-carnitine, a type of amino acid. So long-term effects, we're hearing about the person is saying, so you're telling me about the benefits, but is there a side effect? Because too much of one thing, it can't be good. The person said that.
All right, so let me put it this way. How long should we remain consuming oxygen?
Set while.
I mentioned, and I showed the article before, from a systemic review meta-analysis, that we are biologically designed to consume meat, meaning that we are classed in a category called hypercarnivores, right? How long should a lion eat meat for?
Well, that's what
our digestive system, if anybody ever see images of the digestive system of a lion and of a human, it is almost identical, right? So again, this is why I mentioned that the data shows that we are biologically designed for meat consumption, and the carnivore diet is not a fad diet.
Fad diet, right?
It is not a fad diet. It is how your digestive system is biologically designed to operate and function. We do not have enzymes to break down the pesticides that are naturally produced in plants.
Yes.
We don't have it.
The person say, how he's so rude, boy.
Well, it's not rude. I'm just, you know, I have seen videos of people saying that humans are supposed to breathe oxygen.
What? That humans?
Yes, humans are not supposed to breathe oxygen. Yes, it have people that ridiculous. We are supposed to breathe nitrogen. And I was like, well, then stop breathing and go and just put on a nitrogen mask and see how long you live. Right? And they would never do that, right? But they would tell you we're not supposed, some things sound good, right? So as the person was mentioning there with the where is the source of information? I don't know how they can, their source of information cannot defeat what I read earlier, which is a systematic review of all.
Of all, yes. From
Right?
2010 to now.
From 2010 to now. Systematic review, and the conclusion is meat cannot cause harm to the body.
Yeah.
It cannot. Right?
So,
most of the studies that people have used in the past, right, as they said, were shoddy studies, right, that were done deliberately, done in a terrible manner to formulate a bias because of profit, right? In 1967, the Sugar Research Foundation paid $50,000. This is not my opinion. This is fact, people. You all could Google search this. In fact, I could pull up the article and show you here now, right? The Sugar Research Foundation paid $50,000, right, in order to cover up the fact that sucrose, which is the sugar found in fruits, is what was causing cardiovascular disease, and they stuck the blame on fats, right? This is why they had to do a systematic review on fats and then conclude that we should stop demonizing fats, and saturated fatty acids is safe to consume, right? Look at this here. 50 years ago, sugar industry quietly paid scientists to point blame to fat. People, take note of it, go and look for it yourself and read it. This is not just the only article on this. There are many on this, right? The information is there, but people don't know it there, and people don't search for these things, right? They actually, these things are published, published in medical journals, right? These are published stuff, right? Where they paid money, right? And since then, since this study was released, they have removed a lot of fats, saturated fats. And when you remove fats from foods, it affects the taste of it. So therefore, they had to replace the fats with sugar, which is more addictive and highly dangerous and damaging to the body. You go back till the 1960s and watch a movie from then and look at people in the background. Everybody's slim and fit.
Yes.
Right? Yes. And then look at movies today and look at people in the background. Right? So it's just that a lot of people don't know.
Yes.
Don't know. And because they don't know.
And someone just messaged and said, okay, so what can we eat in terms of meat? Also, I would like to know, can I consume the organs of animals like beef liver, beef kidney, beef brain? Where are you guys getting these things from? Beef brain, beef heart, cow tongue. Is there something called sweetbreads, Seth?
I'm not sure. But let me put it this way: from nose to tail. From nose to tail, you can't consume. Here's something that people don't know: the human stomach can even digest bone. The problem is our jaws, because we have been eating so much of cooked food for centuries and so long, we have lost the jaw strength to crush bone fine enough to swallow, right? But if people could crush bone fine enough, your stomach can digest bone. The stomach produces hydrochloric acid. You
can consume anything from the animal.
Basically, right? Basically, right? But like I said, when it comes to the bone part, our jaws aren't strong enough to crush bone. So lions and tigers, their jaws stronger. Dogs and all jaws are stronger to crush bone. Ours are quite weak with that, right? If a human swallow a rusty nail, it would dissolve in the stomach. The acid in the stomach is, well, let me make a correction. According to US data that came out in 2020 or 2021, only 6.8% of the US population have a properly functioning metabolism. In 2019, it was 12%. So you see what's happening. It's declining. It's declining, right? So people's health declining. So not much people's stomach are strong enough. I have consumed spoiled meat just to see what would happen. Nothing happened. right? And how I consume that because my cousin had come by me and I had some mincemeat in the fridge there that wasn't cooked. It was there for a while on the shelf. He decided to cook it and he got food poisoning.
But
So I came 2 days later, so it got worse. And I cook it and eat it. Nothing happened to me, right? Absolutely nothing happened because my gastric juices are being secreted at the right volume. So therefore, the body is functioning as it should, and it is breaking down the bacteria. In fact, let me just, I know we're going a little longer, but
that's
let
okay.
me
There's some
just,
questions. I have some questions that I know a lot of people have asked me to ask this question. One person is a vegetarian here. So what if I don't meat at all? Am I to change my whole diet and eat meat?
yes, you are if you want to remain healthy. Simple answer, very simple answer. That's why this article here that I read, what it says, if you remember, let me read it. Our study addresses a very current controversy, both scientific and non-scientific, says Professor Barkai. For many people today, the Paleolithic diet is a critical issue, not only with regards to the past, but also concerning the present and the future. It is hard to convince a devout vegetarian that his or her ancestors were not vegetarians, and people tend to confuse personal beliefs with scientific reality, right? With scientific reality. All right. What I wanted to talk about with the acidity in the human stomach. Based on this, it says one prominent example is the acidity of the human stomach, says Dr. Bender. The acidity in our stomach is high when compared to omnivores and even to other predators. Producing and maintaining strong acidity require large amounts of energy, and its existence is evidence for consuming animal products. Strong acidity provides protection from harmful bacteria found in meat, and prehistoric humans hunting large animals whose meat sufficed for days or even weeks often consumed all meat containing large quantities of bacteria and thus needed to maintain a high level of acidity, right? We are not supposed, I see America is banning the consumption of raw oyster because some people start getting food poisoning. We have been consuming raw oysters for as far back as we could remember. But now people are getting sick from it because their metabolism, right? They are consuming so much of ultra-processed food and high plant-based food. Their zinc consumption is so low that their body is not producing acidity at the right strength. And certain things are ending up surviving in their system that should not survive hydrochloric acid.
Yeah.
Right? The hydrochloric acid produced in the human stomach is supposed to be at a strength between 1.1 and 1.5. The acidity in human stomach is supposed to be more acidic than that in predatory cats. But today, plenty people's stomach acidity strength is around 3 and 3.5. And that's because they have deficiencies. And that's what causing problems. So now we want to ban foods that was always safe, right? So we want to restrict our eating, not looking at why it is our stomach acidity has gotten so low that it can't kill some simple bacteria, right? We ain't looking at that. We're just looking, oh, that'll get you sick, right? And we ain't looking at the why.
Someone wants to know, how does the carnivore diet impact the absorption of medication for individuals with lupus and other autoimmune diseases?
Let's put it this way. When you're on the carnivore diet, you would not have a need for medication. We put it that way, right? That's why I said all my clients end up off of all of their medication. They end up off of all of their medication.
I believe Anne Wilson has a question, but she typed it in her name, so I'm unable to see the entire question. Anne, you're free to unmute your mic and ask the question for yourself. You typed it in the space where your name is supposed to be, so we really can't see the full question. It's just, what is the basic diet in? That's all I can see.
Hi, good night. I would like to find out what is the real diet for autoimmune disease like lupus? Is it basically meat, or should we consume a variety of like carbs and
Say that again.
things like that.
And
What is the correct diet?
right?
Mhm.
What is the correct diet for an autoimmune disease like lupus, which I have, and basically is it meat basically, or can I consume carbs with the meat?
All right, now everybody have freedom of choice. So people could consume and eat whatever they want to eat. I am only telling you that the human body is designed for animal-based diet. Therefore, the correct diet for a human being is an animal-based diet. We eat the animals that eat the fruits and the plants and whatnot. We eat those animals that eat that. Their digestive system, they have 4 stomachs. Some have single stomach with 2 compartments. Some have 3 compartments to the intestines, all designed for the breaking down of plant-based material. Humans don't have that. We do not have that. All right. So we don't have those additional compartments in our digestive system for the breaking down of plant material and plant pesticides, things like phytic acid, salicylates, oxalates, saponin, right? Glycocanoloids, cyanogenetic glycosides. We do not have the ability, the biological systems to break down those stuff. So the right diet for somebody with lupus would be the right diet for all humans, which is a carnivorous diet.
And I think to better answer your question in depth, you are free to reach out to Seth Wayu for that one-on-one, and he can advise you, because I know many of us with lupus, we're on different protocols in terms of our treatments and stuff like that. I think it's important that you do that one-on-one with him.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us, Anne. And it's so good to see you.
Thank you very much, Brianna.
I hope this webinar has been very beneficial. I have 2 more questions set. Someone, I suppose this is probably the parent of someone living with lupus. Is it safe for children and teenagers with autoimmune diseases to follow the carnivore diet religiously, or should we be intermingling food sources?
Right. If you go religiously, you're going to get the best results. You're going to get the healthiest your children could possibly be. Right. From people that I know from, visiting different sites of people that are on carnivore diets that would, intermingle, they would still periodically get sick. Right. Unlike myself, right, that doesn't happen. Right. You stick with it. That's the best way to go. If people do that, if it would be nice, because I know doctors abroad who said, all right, they're gonna try the carnivore diet for a month. They did it for a month. Say, all right, they'll do it for 2 months. Then that ended up to 8 months. Now they are never going back to eating an omnivore diet. They are never going back, because the health benefits they have gotten. Even look at the I call him a genius, all right? The psychoanalyst, Jordan Peterson.
Oh, Jordan Peterson, yes.
Jordan Peterson, brilliant guy. He's a 100% carnivore. He eats practically identical to me.
But do you know that he put himself through the juicing for 3 months? He said because he found that he was becoming very bulky, and he put himself juicing for 3 months. And
right,
he considerable amount of weight. He said he was feeling a lot better. There are people here who do that.
Now, I was a vegan for a short space of time, but I am very connected to my body. When I say connected, I could know when I am missing one specific thing, right? I'm that in tune to it. All right. So I think I get an
yeah, I just
when I did the veganism, just to try, because in the gym, you need to get in a certain amount of protein. It's not possible. It's not possible getting in the right amount of protein. And then later on now, as I became more educated, because lentil peas has the highest amount of protein out of the plant-based foods, lentil peas and things like quinoa. And then you realize they don't have all the 9 essential amino acids. What I did not know back then, but what I do know now, is that once a food source is missing one of the 9 amino acids, the body oxidizes the other 8. It says, I am not using any if I cannot get them in together. Your body is that sensitive, right? So this is why a lot of vegans end up underweight and with so much deficiencies. They lose a lot of muscle mass. And on top of that, because of the plant-based foods they are consuming, it has a lot of, some of the foods have things like protease inhibitors, which inhibits the body's ability to utilize protein. So apart from the body oxidizing the other 8 because it's not getting in all 9, you're consuming stuff with protease inhibitors, which prevents the body from even utilizing protein from plant sources, right? And this is why I eat meat by itself, because now if you consume a plant-based food that has protease inhibitors with meat, it blocks the protein from the meat. People don't know that. So when these little case studies and force control studies are done, which are the weak studies or what we call observational studies are done, they are looking at people that are eating burgers and fries with salads and all these stuff, consuming things with all these inhibitors and blockers and whatnot, and then they blame the meat. This is why when they reviewed all of it, they found that meat does not cause harm to the body.
Meat by itself and
does not cause harm to the body.
And not
right?
processed meat. We have to keep saying that.
And not processed meat. Correct. Correct.
Processed.
Right?
Don't be like Rihanna and think because you're still consuming meat and it's in a can that you are eating the right thing. No, no, no. Last question. Someone wants, and I love this question. Can you explain bone broth and its benefits? Because we had this conversation a week ago to start using bone broth for my hip dysplasia, osteoporosis, and the challenges that I've been having with mobility. Can you explain bone broth and can I consume that? And another person who's locked on right now, she said, please, could you please let me know? I need to know what your breakfast, what your lunch, what your dinner looks like so I could have an idea. Please, she's begging, please.
Now, some people might want to just jump on and eat like me, but your system may not be strong enough yet. So this is why I say book the consultation and then I'll guide you along how to build back up your digestive system where it needs to be. All right. But when it comes to, first, let me deal with the bone issue, bone broth. Bone broth has a lot of collagen in it, which is good for connecting tissues and stuff like that. Bone itself also would have things like calcium, which the body also needs and utilize. Fish is a good source of calcium as well. All right, so bone broth is good to use. Now, please, when you're doing the bone broth, do not add vegetables to it, because then you are adding blockers to it, right? So on one hand, you're putting in the stuff that you need, and then on the other hand, you're putting in things like oxalates, which is attracted to calcium and causes calcium oxalates, which causes kidney stones, right?
So no cow heel soup, no oxtail soup.
So yeah, and this is the thing. So for example, countries like I've seen countries like Pakistan and stuff where they eat the street foods. There's a lot of meat, but you're getting between 15 to 25 different herbal ingredients. So it's like, oh my goodness, that is going to mess up digestive system, right? So Pakistan and India, they use so much of spices and stuff that it messes things up. So even though they might consume meat, right? Statistically, they have some of the highest level of stunted growth among children because of their heavy plant consumption. In fact, something people don't know, there are studies now on it. I could pull up these studies, but I mean, because of press for time, that the general height of our society is based on their meat consumption. The Asians are shorter in size, or smaller in size because of their high consumption of rice. And then you go to North Africa, where they are much taller, it's because of their high consumption of meat. But then you go to the Scandinavian countries, they are even larger, but their consumption of meat is the same as the North African. It's just that they consume less plants. And that makes them the largest group of people on earth. When I say large, I'm not talking about overweight or fatter. They look like giants. The average height, I think, is what, 6'5"? Kazakh people, right? The average height, 6'5". That is very tall, right? That is very, very tall, right? I have a picture with them and standing up next to normal people, and the normal people looking almost like children. Yeah. Right. So when I read a historic event that took place years ago, when one Kazakh warrior held off an army on a bridge long enough for his companions to escape, I was like, how one man hold off an army? Until when I did the research now and I saw that Kazakh people were 6-7 feet tall, right, and big and muscular, because they used to eat like 9 pounds of meat per day, right? So they were huge people. I was like, oh, okay, it makes sense, right? One man could hold off an army on a bridge, right? So it's like the movie 300 in a narrow pathway, and one man, that massive, it could hold, right? And it gave them, he did die, of course, but it gave them enough time to escape, right? So the data is there. Yes. The data is there, but most people are holding on to outdated information, right? When I tell you the information is outdated, right? So when not much people are aware of the corrections, and the bodies that publish the corrections are not financed enough or don't have the funding like large corporations to push it out in the media as heavy as the large corporations market the toxic food and medication. I believe there are only 2 countries in the world where pharmaceuticals are allowed to market directly to the population, and the US and another country, right? Right. So the US, they market direct to the population, but you have to get a prescription to buy it.
Yes.
Right, which I find is quite interesting. This is why other countries, it is not allowed for pharmaceuticals to market direct to the population. But when you have a lot of money passing and these kind of stuff, that happens. That happens. And then we down here watching the same American TV and whatnot on cable, and we get these same ads, and we would run and ask our doctor for this medication. Right? What happened? Sorry to bring this in. What happened with the COVID-19 vaccine? It was marketed to the people and it was an experimental drug. So 2 or 3 weeks ago, the US Supreme Court said that COVID-19 vaccines were illegal and should not have been mandated, and all are void. Every COVID-19 vaccine mandate in the US today is void, and everybody that lost the job must be reinstated.
And what about those who have lost their lives? Those who lost their jobs could be reinstated. But what about those who died because there are a lot
families have to take up legal action?
Myocarditis. Some people develop blood clotting issues and they died. I mean, the sudden death syndrome. A lot of persons have come forward where families, they were healthy. As soon as they took the vaccine, they, unfortunately passed away. I have a 63-year-old lupus patient. He wants to know 2 things. Can he start the carnivore diet, and what is the likelihood of him being able to put on some muscle weight? I suppose he probably wants to bulk, I'm not sure. And also he has an issue with his, oh my God, the man put his penis.
When it comes to a lot of men, but I am glad he mentioned that, because a lot of men don't mention it.
Yeah,
it's an issue that's very prevalent with men, erectile dysfunction, which would be the better term.
No, not that. He said he's typing it like this. I pee stop like a block, and it's like a pressure in his testicle.
Okay, so he probably has
Like a blockage. Or
development kidney stones could be
he
a
said
blockage.
enlarged prostate. No, he said enlarged prostate.
Okay, so all those things can be reversed, but I would recommend that he do a consultation with me and we go through it, or get on my health coaching program so that we can go through it.
Can you talk a little bit
For
about
that,
this? Can you just talk a little bit about the services that you offer? Because a lot of persons have so much questions, and I think these are geared towards really having a one-on-one with you. So can you just talk briefly? I want to talk about the aqua fitness. I've been doing this for 6 months, and I remember first walking into the pool. I couldn't even walk. I was dragging into the pool. I had to get Seth to give me his big hand so I could get off from the pool, and now I can walk in and out, and I've been able to, you know, not even use that cane. I mean, a lot of you know that I was dragging around with Mr. Cane, but we got divorced really fast after starting aquatic exercise. I mean, that's my favorite thing to talk about, you know. You have no idea how much joy it brings to my life. I look forward when you see when Friday and there's a Saturday and a Sunday, I'd be vexed, you know. Monday come fast to go back into the pool, because it's so therapeutic. And you know, when you've lived in chronic pain and illness for as long as I have, and you experience, even if it's the tiniest amount of relief, it really makes the world of difference. When you live as a prisoner in your own body and you find something for once that has helped or has given you a little glimmer of relief, that has helped and has aided to improve your productivity. There are times when I could not even last through the office a full 8 hours. I would have to wrap up and go and sleep. The fatigue levels were so bad. The fatigue, the chronic fatigue. This is just my story. I can only talk about my story. I can only stand in my truth. I can only talk about what my story has been. It's not a walk in the park. Anyone wanting to start this way of life, as you've heard, it's not a fad. It's not a quick fix. It is not something that, oh, I go try it today, tomorrow I go eat crappy again, then I go try it the next day. You have to make a commitment. For me, I did not understand fully, because when you make a mistake, especially going and you consuming processed meat and you're thinking, well, I'm still on the carnivore diet, you're not consuming the right things. So you do need that one-on-one coaching. You need that support. You need that guidance, because you will make mistakes. But I remember looking at Sean Baker and a bunch of YouTube videos where they tell you, even if you slip up, you just get back up and you go again, right? And 2023 was my determination to start once again, but doing it in an informed way. It's very hard, you know. Take it from me, it's very, very hard. Dealing with living by yourself, financial constraints, but you have to choose. You have to make a choice. You have to make a choice. So I want to encourage you to make your appointments. At Wayo's numbers are right on his back page there. You can see the numbers. You can get in touch. He is available. Aquatic classes are at Day Bay Fun Splash for those in South. And I'm happy to announce he has also now started a new venue in Cunupia.
Yes,
right,
at the Well Fun Park.
The Well Fun Park.
Yeah.
And I would encourage, because oftentimes we as lupus patients, because we're struggling with chronic fatigue, we have a lot of pain. Sometimes we can't even get up from the bed. We think that there's no hope and we cannot exercise. I am telling you, once you start aquatic exercise, there is no turning back. Your body will feel the benefits. You will reap the benefits. Take it from this fatty, okay? This plus size woman who has not entered a gym in so many years, who used to run, who used to kickbox. I was sharing with a friend earlier the days when I used to pump iron, and I watch myself and say, I was like that boy, pumping iron, cycling, you know, and it is a breath of fresh air to find something. And I'm pushing this because of the benefits that I have experienced doing aquatic classes, and also the low impact that it has on the joints. You do not feel, well, yeah, you just feel it on a Friday.
No, Fridays, you're supposed to feel it. If you don't feel it on a Friday, something wrong.
You feel it on a Friday, but Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, let me tell you something, make the investment. And I think right now you're doing a session, $50 at
60 a session, and 500.
$50?
No, 60. Everything is 60. Same price, both
Okay, so
locations.
you have to change your ad because you have $50, okay?
50?
Yes, 50.
Okay, it's supposed to be $60. A
Yes,
session.
double check your ad for canoe pits. I
No,
saw
it's $60. On the other 60. $60 per session and 500 per month.
and 500 per month, okay?
Yeah.
So, right, so before we leave, we say thank you to Seth Wayo. I mean, this is something that we're going to continuously do once a month, depending on his schedule. I know you're on a break from Breaking Dawn until Carnival is over. Is that correct?
Yeah, until Carnival is over. So after Carnival, we'll be back on
Right.
Breaking Dawn, yeah.
Right. And can you just talk a little bit? You talked about your health coaching services. You talked about the one-on-one consultation and stuff like that. You have an office now. I know before it was just
What I'm doing, I have a location to meet people, which would be at the Wellfund Park. And soon I'll be establishing. The business doesn't require an office because, I mean, it could do it online. I don't administer medication or anything to people that is not needed. All right. But a lot of people still want to meet you in person. So that meeting would be done at Wellfund Park, having nice seating areas there, nice couch and whatnot. You could sit down and relax, open air, and where we could have those consultations. I would have my tablet so you can see the information as well. All right. The human body and health is to me is such a simple thing. It's such a simple thing. It's easy to fix and reverse diseases. But we live in a world where there is so much of misinformation out here that to many people it's complex. So the health coaching program is where I guide your diet. All right. And there are different levels of the health coaching program. Some would also include physical training as well. All right. So it all depends on which package that you want. All right. Outside of that, I have the aquatic exercise, which is working, training in the environment or the aquatic environment. So you get the safety of the water and the buoyancy of the water helps cushion the joints. You have the hydrostatic pressure of the water, which aids in circulation. All right. So it's all around better. You get between 4 to 44 times the resistance of air because you have to work against the water, right? And it's what we call kinetic movement. So you get direct resistance from every angle. So you get more holistic development of the muscles. So all-around training in water is the best environment for exercising. And it is safe and effective. Yes, you get more senior people gravitating to it, but it's not just for seniors. They gravitate to it because it is easier for them to exercise in there than on land based on the ailments that they're dealing with. All right. But I also want to encourage people to know that your nutrition is key, right? If you want to build muscle, you must get your nutrition right. You can exercise as much as you want to the point that exercise could start to harm your body if your diet isn't right. Right.
I heard you say that many of your clients in the past have been guilty of trying to exercise.
Out-exercise a bad diet. Yeah. And I always wonder, no. There are times, I remember I went 8 months without exercising. And when people saw me, they saw me rip. And they thought I was just going to another gym. No, I wasn't doing that. I was eating right. I was eating right. So they look at the physique and they think, yeah, he was gymming somewhere else. And I was like, well, he was using fat burners. And no, I wasn't using none of those things. I don't use any supplements or vitamins. I don't use any of those things. Right? It's not needed. When you eat correctly, you get in everything that you need. You would not have deficiencies. All right. But we have been programmed to believe you must take a vitamin. I mean, it have articles written on this showing that the vitamin industry is just solely marketing. There is no science to back them, right? It is just, and I'm talking about the latest information, not to pull up for a 20-year-old article and saying vitamins good for you and that good for you. I'm talking about the latest information that came out last year and year before and so forth within the past 3 years, talking about the vitamin, the supplement industry is just good marketing, right? People thinking they need all these. A lot of people suffering from kidney stones because of vitamin C supplements, right? Excess vitamin C, your liver converts it to oxalates, and oxalates have an attraction to calcium and they form calcium oxalates, which gives you kidney stones. So a lot of people are getting kidney stones from vitamin C supplements. But a lot of people don't know because, again, we left our knowledge of our own body into the hands of the authorities. So we are blindly trusting, right? We are blindly trusting, and we need to come out of that gullible state, right? We also need to know, I do not believe in the term incurable illness. I don't believe in that. I believe every illness, every disease is curable. Now, many people who suffer from illnesses have gotten to a point where they have accepted, because they have been told that this illness that they have is going to last for the rest of their life. It's the same as somebody that have been wrongfully accused of a crime and get a life sentence in prison. After spending about 5 years in prison, you give up on attaining freedom. You now accept that you are going to live the rest of your life in prison. And then a lawyer come along and say, I was reviewing your case and I think you have a chance of getting your freedom. And many of the inmates would say, nah, I don't want it again, because they have lost hope. They have lost hope. And that thought of freedom has been taken away from them to the point that they think that just the prison is all that they have and nothing else could come, right? They have gotten into that frame. They have accepted their fate. So when somebody come now and tell them, you could be free, they deny it. They deny it, right? Yeah. Sickness, disease, illnesses also has that same effect on us. Many people have accepted, you know what? I had to live with this for the rest of my life. So when they hear you could be disease free, nah, you're talking craziness. They would not even give it a try. I have encountered people with stage 4 cancer. This is end of term, right? End of life disease, right? Stage 4, meaning that you're going to die. And still, they would refuse to try something different. Now, do the research, you will see that there have been many people with stage 4 cancer, and the cancer just up and pack up ship and gone. Right? Many people it have happened to. All right? So stage 4 cancer is not the end. It is not the end. But a lot of people have just accepted that fate. I did a consultation with a PhD professor, and he agreed with everything I was showing him. He's suffering with cancer. And I said, you don't need to do chemo, you know. He's like, I know I don't need to do it. He said, but I already convinced my mind to do it.
Yeah.
He agreed with because this is a professor, PhD, right? In animal science. So you know. But he said he convinced his mind to do it. He didn't start it yet. Right? He said, but I already commit my mind and energy towards doing this. So I'll go in and do it. He said, I will check you when I finish. He never did. Right? I don't even know what's his status now.
Oh, I was going to say if he died.
I don't know. I don't even know.
Oh,
I don't even know.
Right.
Right? But he never did after that. But what I was told is that he had gotten very sick afterwards. But that's where a lot of people are at. Right? Your mind has been convinced that there is no option again.
Yes, there's no
right? I don't like to say the term cure because these are lifestyle illnesses. So if you go back to the poor lifestyle, these things would come back, right? That's why I like to use the word reverse, right? So you can reverse these incurable diseases, but people have to be willing to make the effort to make the effort, right? And that's where a lot of people have, plenty of people have given up hope. So I am just offering a little bit of hope for those that still have that little glimmer of hope in them, right? Still have that glimmer of hope in them, still seeing and could picture themselves as being whole and healthy and complete, right? Because we are designed to be healthy. We're not designed to be diseased, right? Being healthy is being disease-free, right? And that's where we should all be striving to be.
I think too, it's important to know that your diet is not just what you put in your mouth, but it's also feeding this.
Correct.
Feeding this.
Correct.
In the last 6 months, that's what being introduced to this way of life has taught me. It's about this also. What you're feeding your mind, not just what you're feeding here, but what you're feeding your mind. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We have come to the end of our webinar. I hope you're one step closer to understanding and making a better choice for yourself when it comes to your diet, when it comes to your whole thought process behind living with systemic lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, any other autoimmune diseases. If you have any other questions, you have 2 minutes, or we say adios, farewell, till we meet again. I believe our next webinar would have to be sometime after the Carnival. Seth, I know you're a big mass man, right? Yes, played Juve thing.
You were playing this year.
So,
right? Without alcohol, of course.
I was going to ask you, so what would you consume? Would you be...
My drink, which is the only drink I consume, is club soda.
So would you be hiding a steak in your pouch?
If what?
You'll be trotting down with the road truck with the steak in your...
Yeah, with my club soda and for Carnivore, club soda and salt. Club soda and salt. That's what I would be consuming if I'm on the road or out. All right. And I think if people only could enjoy themselves with alcohol, then they don't know how to enjoy themselves. Right? I don't need to poison myself to enjoy myself. Right?
All right. Well, so Joanne saying thank you for the valuable information. So again, we say thank you and good night. I'm going to end the live streaming, and you still have a minute left if you would like to